There are a bunch of great projects, 138 to be exact, now available in EU4, and it's time to rank them in the only objective way possible, a tier list. I'll be trying to include everything in the rankings, as always bearing in mind MP and single player, as well as factoring in the requirements to use the monuments. So monuments with no requirements will naturally perform better. I will also not be including the canals, so that's the Panama, Suez, and Kiel canals, because they're way too unique in this regard. Anyway, enough talking. There are a lot of great projects to get through today, but before we begin, the usual things would be appreciated. A like on the video would be great if you haven't already, and a subscription would be amazing. But enough self-shitting. Let's begin with the Afak Koja Mausoleum. I'm going to butcher a lot of these words today. Well, thankfully there's pictures. This is one of the new monuments added in the new patch, and it's really strong. Honestly, I think it should have the requirement to be Muslim, to some extent, as a national religion, but I kind of see why they didn't, because it's like, it can be used by Chinese culture groups, or Russia if it goes in that direction, or basically anyone in the area. It's quite strong, giving at level 3 50% religious unity, as well as some piety status and clergy loyalty equilibrium. If you don't really care about clergy loyalty equilibrium and monthly piety status, it's still really, really nice. 50% religious unity means that if you run this monument, you basically don't have to worry about religious unity at a, well, at an institutional level. So basically, you're probably going to have 50% religious unity just from existing if you're not going out of your way to nuke your religious unity. And this kind of fixes the religious unity aspect of having a disloyal population. I think it's incredibly strong and should be used, basically. And so, it's a new addition, which, I mean, yeah, not very long in the game, but I think it's a very firm A slot and a very good way of getting the A tier for us. With that, though, we move on to the Al-Azhar University. Now, the main, I think, point from it is the global modifier of -5% idea cost. That used to be part of the pyramids. It's kind of been moved to this university, which I guess is nice, because this university also doesn't have any requirements. Outside of -5% idea cost, it's kind of eh. +1 yearly government power is good for specifically Egypt. It's also good for things like Russia that can bother to go down to Egypt to pick up the +1 yearly government power. Otherwise, it's a bit whatever. And even when you do it as Egypt or Russia, okay, you can press your buttons a bit more. The buttons are good, but it's not exactly overpowered. It's a nice one to have. The local institution spread as well means that if you ever do like half Devon institution there, it can spread a bit faster, but it's kind of whatever, to be honest, in the institution spread. The main thing you're getting it for is -5% idea cost. Like, it's not bad if you're late game and you have nothing better to spend your money, of course. It's kind of applicable to most of the monuments. But at the same time, it's -5 idea cost. It's a very competitive list because a lot of monuments are good. So even though -5% idea cost is bad, I think it's going to be sitting in C tier. With that said, we move on to Alhambra. 5% admin efficiency, 10 income from vassals, okay, it's nice, but who cares? -10 the design subjects, even the dip rep is nice. It's Alhambra, right? I mean, who doesn't love Alhambra? S tier, and let's move on. Let's not waste any of our time. Al Jafira Palace. Again, no requirements, much like the previously mentioned Alhambra doesn't have requirements as well. Unfortunately, I like Alhambra, the modifiers are a bit eh. I mean, you get harsh treatment cost. The nice thing with it, though, is you get +2 missionary strength on any religion. So this is, if you ever are going for a one faith, this is a very nice palace to pick up, because regardless of whatever religion you are, +2 missionary strength, you can just grab from this thing. Harsh treatment cost can also be good for if you're going specifically for absolutes and builds where you're trying to get the harsh treatment age ability for -2% harsh treatment cost. And you stack with this thing, you can basically harsh treatment for really, really cheap to get to 100 abs very quickly. So it's kind of good for that if you want to be burning mill for abs, but otherwise it's a bit whatever. Resistance to Reformation, look, if the Reformation is spreading to you, +3% resistance to the Reformation isn't going to stop it spreading to you. So take it. And -1 local unrest regional modifier is just, I feel like it's there to pad out the list of buffs. It's good, it's nice because of the missionary strength, and I think it's been really dragged up quite a bit of an extra thing because it's it doesn't have any requirements in that tier. Even in multiplayer, of course, it's quite a bit sadder because you don't really care that much about missionary strength, but I think in single player, it's really, really good for your one faith builds, and it's just really good for converting in general, especially with this ability to apply to every single religion. So I think it's definitely making its way into A tier, although nearer the bottom end of A tier, in my opinion, as well. After that, we get Ambrose Castle. Locally, it gives you a bunch of defensiveness, so it makes the mountain it's on quite a bit better for holding, namely the gold mine for Austria. It's good in that regard, like it makes the mountain a bit more of a royal pain in the ass to actually attack. 25% local defensiveness, 25% local defensiveness on the province kind of double stacks with itself to get 50% defensiveness. Unfortunately, in global modifiers, you get 0.5 yearly prestige. This is kind of the issue with yearly prestige from great projects, is that overall, combined, that's pretty good. When you have 0.5 or 1 prestige adding up from like 20 great projects, you're going to be staying at 100 prestige. That's really nice. Can't complain. Unfortunately, because so many great projects kind of have it, it makes it less valuable overall. But Prestige is still good, so I don't think it should be dismissed. Army Drill game modifier is whatever. The thing is with Army Drill, you're either at peace drilling your troops to full, and well, you're not exactly taking 5 minutes to drill to gain 3%, you know, like 0.3 drill. It doesn't matter too much in the grand scheme of things. So it's kind of a weird one. It's quite weak, but it's not entirely useless, so I think it's a good summary of the C tier. With that, moving on to the Amsterdam Borussia. The Amsterdam B, we'll go with that. This one does have a requirement. It needs to be Dutch. You need to accept the Dutch people. Always a big setback in your country when you have to accept the Dutch people, but it is what it is. Province modifier-wise, 20% trade value. People don't really know how to evaluate that. The TLDR of how good it is goods produced is good because it increases your production income as well as trade value produced by the province. So 20% trade value is basically 10% goods produced locally, because you're not getting the production income, but you're getting twice as much trade value from it. Unfortunately, it's quite in an end node, so you're not getting any trades during that trade value, but at the end of the day, just, you know, it's not the end of the world. It's giving you another 15 local trade power modifier though as well, and that's quite good because it's 15 local trade power modifier in an area where you want trade power, the English Channel, so that's quite nice as well. And it comes with 10% trade company investment cost, which is weird because I feel like if you're at the point where you're able to afford a level 3 monument, you're probably not at the point where you're, you know, scraping ducats to get trade company investments. So it's a bit of a weird modifier. It's specifically very good for Netherlands though, because if you do complete the Netherlands mission for getting an extra conditional modifier out of it, you can get an extra 25% trade steering and some getting inflation reduction. 25% trade steering, of course, be absolutely massive. So it's quite good for the Netherlands, but it's kind of a decent, like it's kind of an okay monument otherwise, and it's just quite strong for the Netherlands specifically. So it's a bit of a weird one in this regard. I'm going to count the Netherlands buff as more of a buff to the Netherlands mission tree. They can get 25% trade steering if they get this monument to level 3 as well. It's like a conditional requirement on that mission, basically. Unfortunately, if you're not Netherlands and have not completed that mission, it's kind of because it's not. It's kind of like very province buff oriented. So it's a weird one. I don't think it quite scrapes into the higher things, but I'm happy to have it like either very top of C or very bottom of B. I think though with the trade steering and the potential of it, it's probably going to be enough to justify getting to B tier, but I'm not going to hold it above that. Otherwise, past that, we do get Angkor Wat, not the air monument. So let's read these real quick. Angkor Wat is quite a bit more strict on the requirements. Seem to be Sierra Nevada, Vajrayana, or Mariana, or be Tengri and accept one of those, or go Confucian, or do the whole Shinto Dharmic things, or get Buddha, and basically be an Eastern religious group, or Tengri that accepts them, or do some mission with the Shinto, or do a specific mission as a tag to enable the Buddha dynasty. So if you meet those conditions, either by just having those conditions met, or, you know, going out of your way to get them, what do you get out of it? Yeti Karma Decay, plus 15%. It's kind of whatever. I mean, it doesn't hurt, but it's not the best thing. The only thing that's big with Angkor Wat is minus 10% tech cost. That helps, but overall, you're not saving that much mono points if you think about it. Because even if you get this day 1 at tech 3, right? You're getting, what, 29 techs. So let's make our math a bit easier. You're getting 30 techs times 3, getting 90 techs, and you're saving 60 Monaco points from each one, right? That's not a trivial amount of Monaco points, granted we rounded up, but let's not round up actually. So assuming you get it literally day 3, so 29 times 3, that's 87 technologies. You're saving 60 Monaco points from the base cost of 600 down to, well, 540. So that means over a campaign, you're saving yourself 5,220 Monaco points. It's not bad, but bear in mind that the game lasts quite a while. So if you just made 1 Monaco point a month between 1821 and 1444, that means there's 377 years, right, that you're making 1 Monaco point a month. It's 1 mana a month, right? Because that gets you 4,500 Monaco points. You're saving just over 5,000. Like, yeah, there's around a 500 Monaco point difference. That's quite big, but you're probably not getting it for Tech 333, right? By the time you're getting this, in like by Tech 8, Tech 9, even if you're rushing towards it, this monument is basically plus 1 Monaco point a month, right, for that tech cost. So it's not bad. I like plus 1 mana a month, but let's not treat tech cost as something incredibly amazing. A lot of people, I think, really overvalue tech cost, and I certainly was one of those people that quite liked stacking tech cost, but let's not think it's some kind of amazing big deal thing, right? It's a nice catch-up mechanism. Obviously, it's not as good as 1 flat, mana a month, because that can mitigate it. But if something has advisor cost, and that advisor cost lets you upgrade an advisor earlier than it would normally, it's kind of better, almost, right? But it is what it is. Anyway, let's get back to this monument. I think the requirements really hold it down. So even though its potential is decent, you have to do quite a bit of work to get there at the end of the day. And minus 10 tech cost, I mean, Just get into C tier and sit there, I think is the best way of summarizing it. After that, we get on to the 8 Ben Haddo. That's the one in the Maghreb. Globally, it's nice. 5% global trade power is just a nice little thing to have on the side. 10% trade efficiency never hurts, just a bit more extra money. And caravan power just makes your inland nodes better. So it's just a great workhorse monument. It's a good way of summarizing it. It's not like anything too unique. It's not going to redefine your playthrough, but it's going to make everything in life just a little bit better. So into B tier it goes. With that said, we now move on to the Bagan Temples. Woo. Well, not quite. We technically have the Mosque mode. That one jumped a bit in our rankings. Baghdad Temples. Again, it has the same requirements as the Angkor Wat, so a whole bunch of fun and games requirements on that. But Hindu can also grab the Baghdad Temples if they get the Buddha as their personal deity, so that's nice. Global modifiers get even more Yeti Karma Decay, but the big thing with the Baghdad Temples is the +2 missionaries and 2 missionary strength. That thing is really, really good, right? So if you are actually playing in that area, make sure you do pick up the Baghdad Temples, because +2 missionaries and +2 missionary strength is going to be huge for your conversions. +2 missionaries is insane for being able to convert just so much more and so much faster. So even though there's a lot more requirements for this one, simply because of how good it is and what the buffs it provides, I think it does get itself into A tier. It's not as versatile as the +2 missionary strength flat, because it's a very specific religion that gets it, but it's still just good to have if you are playing within those religions. Next we get the Batu Rahman Grand Mosque. Again, my apologies for the pronunciations. 2% missionary strength to transfer true faith. You do have to be Muslim. That's not that difficult. A lot of runs these days actually do that are World Conquest tend to be Muslim because of how good Muslim is for World Conquest and single player, especially in propagating religions. And plus the transfer true faith and 2 missionary strength as well as clergy-logical equilibrium. Nothing to complain about there. It's just an excellent workhorse monument and a good one at that. I personally had a pretty good experience within that monument as well, because it's one of those monuments that you tend to conquer as a large Muslim empire, like the Ottomans or Mughals. That tends to go really east, so it's like a nice thing to pick up later, like almost as a mini reward for making it that far. So I quite like it personally. So for that reason, I'm going to be quite generous towards it. So I'll be holding at the bottom of A tier, although I can definitely understand some of the confusion with that. I just think it's quite a nice one when you do end up grabbing it. After that, though, we have the Baku Ateshgah. You need to be Zoroastrian. It gives you 10 discipline. Now, this is a weird one, because the thing is with this monument is you're either Zoroastrian and you're using it for 10 discipline, 10 fire damage received, +5 land fire, and -10 culture conversion cost. Or you're not Zoroastrian, in which case this thing is a pretty pile of rocks that sits inside your room, right? A lot of Zoroastrian is almost good because it has this monument, so it's very, dependent on it. So it's a very weird one to rank in this regard. The problem is that it literally makes Zoroastrian significantly more viable, the existence of this monument. So I think it's not going to be too controversial if I'm a bit more generous towards this one. Although, where the hell is the image for it gone? Huh. That's not helpful. The problem is, of course, with some of the Unicode character translations, the alphabetical order of them just gets maxed out. So, for example, the next one is actually the BAM Citadel. But from this list, where's our fun little great project gone? This is not going to be helpful. This is already not boding too well for the there it is. For the organization of this thing, because again, the non-Unicode characters really mess up the alphabetical order of this whole thing. Anyway, back to ranking it. It's just really good. I mean, it's 10 discipline. Even in single player, that's really, really strong, because it basically means you don't need to ever take quantity, any kind of quality anymore. So it's very much holding on its own. It's good because it's almost worth flipping Zoroastrian all the time just to get the monument. So it's a very weird one in that regard. I don't think it quite has the versatility to sit in S tier, but because of just how strong it is when you do get it, I mean, basically, if it was for everyone, it would be an S tier monument. But because it's not for everyone, I think it enters the top of B tier, right? It's just been massively held back by the fact that it's such a specific requirements on it. After that, though, we get the BAM Citadel, no requirements, give 40% caravan power and a merchant. I never complain about an extra merchant. I'm going to never complain about caravan trade power, even when it comes to some local defensiveness in the area, which it never hurts. It's basically much like Air, just an excellent workhorse monument. So in you go into there. I mean, the merchant's nice, but the global trade power's good. So it's a very comparable monument to that, almost, is what I would say. After that, we get the Barakatra. You need to be Eastern area or a Hindustani group for it, and, well, accept the culture. Also comes to the merchant, but this has more trade steering and ship trade power. It's very nice if you do grab it. It's better than BAM Citadel if you can, access it, but you need to be a specific culture group. for it and have that culture group accepted. With that said, 20% trade steering is of course really, really strong. So I think much like our other Indian monuments, it's going to be going to B tier. It's not going to be game break defining it. Like the thing is with trade steering is individually, unless you're specifically stacking for it, it's not going to be the best thing on the planet. But it's just nice when you do grab it. It's an excellent definition of a workhorse monument. And with that, we move on to the Bellum Tower. Now, thankfully, they changed it from the monument that gave you loads of defensiveness. Now this just gives you loads of local manpower and some national status modifier. It has no requirements. The thing is, this is really, really nice if you're going for specifically a marine type of build, like as England, because national sailors are somewhat harder to come by normally, so an extra 25% is good on that. The main thing, however, is 15% global trade power, and on the area, it makes it quite good to build a lot of your manpower buildings and invest in manpower, because 50% local manpower modifier is really, really good. Plus 15 local trade power is also quite nice for contesting Sevilla, so you definitely shouldn't ignore it. It's it's another nice definition of very workhorse monuments with good potential. So into the upper echelons of B tier you go. Not much more to say there, I'm afraid. After that, we move on to the Biblioteca Corviniana. That's the thing in Hungary. Institution, spread institution, basement cost, idea cost, really. I mean, come on, guys. It suffers very much from the same problem as that university in Cairo as well. It's just kind of By the time you're getting it, like, you don't really care about -5 idea cost. But if you have nothing better to dump your money on, it's -5 idea cost. It doesn't hurt. -10 institution embracement cost can save you a bit of money when embracing institutions, but honestly, that's like maybe an extra loan or two if you're really, really big. And if you're really, really big, you can probably afford to embrace your institution. Anyways, nobody decides to spread. Institution spread 30% also doesn't do too much, I find, but it's not like awful. So there we go. After that, Bordeaux. Again, fat loads of requirements. Citadels, Vigiana, Mariana list of monuments. It's quite good when you do grab it. 25% culture conversion cost does stack nicely if you want to go for early culture conversion, 1 culture builds. And max promoted cultures kind of helps with that somewhat as well if you're not doing that. -2 national unrest also is quite helpful. The monthly autonomy change is kind of whatever, but it's nice to have it, I guess, is the honest answer. Cannot complain. It's a very nice workhorse monument that's kind of held back by the relatively strict requirements on it. So again, it's a bit of a weird one. But into B tier you go. Again, if it didn't have the requirements, it would definitely be a strong A tier. But I think the requirements really hold it back. After that, we get our Bran Castle. Woo! Now, you need to be either Roman and accept its culture, or be the Carpathian group and accepted by its culture. So if you form the Roman Empire, congrats, you can pick it up. Otherwise, you need to be in the Carpathian group and accept that. Gives you 25% local defensiveness, and globally, it makes your fort maintenance decrease on border with rival, which is kind of a weird one because, I mean, especially in single player, those tend to change. In multiplayer, it's a bit nice, but in multiplayer, you tend to build tall and can afford your forts, so National garrison growth is a weird one. I personally am not a fan of national garrison growth because a lot of your garrisons either at peace, in which case it grows immediately, or you're at war, in which case it's, you know, it's just has already grown to the maximum amount. Like, it's not anything too extra, right? It's not useful in practice. The only real time is that if you capture a new fort, it's a bit faster to refill your garrison. But once you're above 100 garrison, it doesn't really matter if you're 110 or 200 garrison. You're still not losing below the 100 siege ticks. It's kind of whatever. It's honestly a very whatever monument, and like, you have to work really hard to make it marginally useful. Is the best way of summarizing Bran Castle. So for that reason, we have our first entry into D tier. It's just quite a tough competition with these ones. And with that, we move on to Brandenburg Castle. Well, Brandenburg Gate. Technically has no requirements, but if you're not Prussia, it's a bit useless, because the main thing is it gives you Prussian militarization, as well as militarization of states, so yay. If you don't have the militarization mechanic, that's pretty useless, but if you're Prussia specifically, you get extra 10 max effective absolutism on it, and 10 max effective absolutism comes to 3% admin efficiency, as well as some a little bit of discipline on the side. I mean, I don't think I've ever seen anyone excited about 0.5 discipline, but you know, it's there. Like, the main thing is that it helps Prussia maintain its militarization. So like, if you're Prussia, you want to invest in this monument. Otherwise, you're getting it to get some prestige and army tradition from battles, which is whatever. Like, if you're at a point where you're ready to dump loads of money into a monument, you're probably good on getting prestige from land battles, and you're probably like not fighting that much to get army tradition from battles. Like, you're probably fighting a lot, sure, but you're not getting that much army tradition from battles, because the army tradition you get from battles is proportional to the total amount of your force limit that you're losing. So if you're losing like 0.3% of your force limit, get an extra 50% army tradition from that isn't going to do too much. So it's kind of a weird one. Like, as Prussia, you build this for the militarization. If you're not Prussia, then it's very irrelevant. It's a bit of a weird one. Might be a bit controversial because it is good as Prussia, and I want to be clear here. As Prussia, it's an A tier because you want to keep up militarization. Otherwise, for literally everyone else under the sun, especially if you also Prussia and you drop militarization mechanics, just it's a D tier monument. It's pretty useless. And I think because not every campaign, in fact most campaigns aren't Prussia, they'll be going into D tier. With that said, we move on to our Buddha statues. Woo! Now we are skipping quite a few at the moment. Buddha statues, again, same list of beautiful requirements as before. Hindu with the Buddha deity, being Shinto, Theravada, Vajrayana, Tengri with the Buddhist religion synchronized, all of those things. Fat loads of requirements. When you do meet them, you get a missionary strength, and culture conversion cost. So it's very similar in that situation to the temple, where it's very strong if you can meet the requirements. Otherwise, it's not really great. So there we go. That's the long TLDR of it. And from that, we move on to Cahokia. Woo. We're going to be skipping a couple of these. I'm just going to not carry them forward and just wait until we come back to them. Cahokia is a weird one. You need to be Totemist. So if you're Totemist, it's nice. Otherwise, it's eh. You need to be Totemist to use it. Otherwise, it just sits there looking pretty. And when I say it's nice, I meant in multiplayer because 20% national manpower. The problem I have is in what multiplayer campaign are you ever going Totemist? Unless some kind of a LARP co-op thing, because if you're playing as a Native American, you're just going to get killed by a colonizer. I'm sorry to everyone who wants to do their Aztec campaign and, reconquer Europe or whatever. I'm not going to lie, if the multiplayer players are in any reasonable level of competence, you can have your fun on the Aztecs, but the moment England arrives, they're just going to absolutely slaughter you because they're going to have, 44th limit with 5 Miltex on you. There's just nothing you can do. You're just going to kill over and die. You basically just gave them a stronger colonial nation. Well done. Right? Tribal development growth is whatever. If you have the money to build Cahokia, you're probably not at a position where you care about tribal development growth. And -1 monthly devastation is also just eh. If you're in a situation where you can afford to build Cahokia to level 3, you're not in a situation where you care about the monthly devastation, tribal development growth. You probably care about the 20% extra manpower, but then you have to be Totemist, which, yeah, probably not, is all I will say. So, it's just a sad monument, I'm sorry. Into detail you go. After that, we get the Cartagena de Indias fort system. Well, you have to be in the New World for it, so you have to kind of, make sure you don't shove it inside a colonial nation. But if you don't, it's quite nice. You get ship trade power, so if you're ever propagating it, that's nice. It's a global modifier. Otherwise, it's a bit hard to placate it locally. The thing is, if you're not, protecting trade power with light ships, and you're just conquering a trade like a normal person, it's kind of irrelevant. The main thing is, +10 hostile fleet attrition is quite good for basically making it a royal pain in the ass to actually invade. But apart from leaving people with hostile fleet attrition, it's just irrelevant in the grand scheme of things. I'm sorry, I can't have it any higher than D2. And then we move on to Sierra do Potosi. Who doesn't love Sierra do Potosi, apart from the fact it's apparently really migrated all the way down to the bottom there. It's a mountain. I'm not sure how on God's green earth you're upgrading a mountain, but that's not the only that's not the only monument that's actually a mountain that we're upgrading. As we all know, if you throw money into a literal mountain made of silver, the mountain becomes more productive. I just don't question it. It just works. Trust me. When you upgrade a mountain, the mountain grows taller or something. But yeah, I mean, it's on a gold province. It gives you +3 local goods produced without any chance of, decreasing, and it gives you interest per annum as well as inflation reduction. What's not to love, right? It's really, really nice. As well as giving the area 15% local goods produced. It's really good for specifically getting gold. I mean, it does what it says on the tin. It's a mountain you can dig gold out of, and it's kind of a self-fulfilling loop where the more gold you dig, the more you can upgrade it. It's a good workhorse monument. And so into B tier you go, because you're not going to build, it's hard to make a gold-based economy. And even if you spend all that effort making a gold-based economy, you can just make a trade-based economy instead and make the same amount of money without having to worry about inflation and, gold depletion. So it's a bit of a weird one. I mean, I personally don't like gold, but if you really love making a gold LARP, of course it's going to be a bit ranked better. Still, it's definitely not a bad monument, which is why I enjoy level B. After that, we're back to the Chan Citadel. Global modifiers, +2 relations, and 0.3 yearly authority means that it's good if you're playing the Inca, which means this probably should be required behind playing as the Inca. Otherwise, +2 relations is eh. By the time you're ever grabbing this as some kind of global empire, you're probably proclaimed a hegemon, so you're not exactly running around with friends. Otherwise, locally, you can buff your fort again. They do like having a bunch of monuments that buff local forts. Otherwise, it's kind of whatever. I mean, it's hard to justify anything above a D tier for it, which is why I'm not. I'm sorry. It's positive relations. It's the fact that a level 3 monument can be replaced with nobility with an ability privilege is just kind of sad. But there we go. Next, Chichen Itza. Manpower recovery speed, recruitment time, and infantry cost. You have to be in the mine group and accepted, but if you are, it's good. Manpower recovery speed is nice. Recruitment time is at least global, and infantry cost saves you a bunch of money. It's a nice workhorse monument for multiplayer, squeezing out a bit more manpower recovery for your force. And unlike having religious requirements, you can just accept the mine group or something in that regard. It's in the New World, so it's a bit more of a pain to get to, so it's going to be knocked down compared to something that's like in Europe, for example. But it's definitely quite nice, and I definitely can't complain about Chichen Itza. It's one of those things that if you are playing something like a France campaign, you grab the one province, build the monument up, accept the Mayan culture, and move on with your life. So the fact it's worth doing that, I think, kind of makes it belong in B tier, but that's about it. With that said, we now move on to the Citadel of Aleppo. Woo! So we're finally back to the image we had at the front. It buffs the Aleppo province because it only gives it local modifiers, and it makes it a nicer fort. The problem is it's a terrible fort anyway. So you're basically spending loads of money to build a level 3 fort where you could just build a Highlands fort and get the same like local defensiveness you would otherwise get. You can get 50% local manpower, but I'll ask you this: would you spend 7,500 on building a barracks again, like building 2 barracks in a province instead of 1? My answer is probably not, even in multiplayer. Like, that's an insane amount of money to build. It's just not good. I'm sorry. Into DTA go. Why would you ever build this? Anyway, after that, we of course move on to the city of Kami. This is a weird one in that regard. In the because I also can't find this image. Where did this image go? God damn it. This like alphabetization that's technically alphabetized but actually isn't alphabetized is incredibly not helpful, is what I will say. Where did the city of Kami go? Now I'm like distracted trying to find the city of Kami in these images. Why is every single great project so grey? Here it is. Right, come on guys, it's meant to be a great project. Use some other fancier colours. Right. Anyway, city of Kami. -5 tech cost and -30 cost fabricate claims. I've been quite harsh to the -10% tech cost. At least this one, however, can be acquired by everyone. And so if you're building a Colonial Empire, you can kind of pick it up. Thing is, when you're building a Colonial Empire, you tend to have a lot of money anyway, so it's nice not to grab. But the other issue is that if you're caring about cost fabricate claims, you're saving me 3 months of diplomat work. I don't really care about it that much, like, normally. But I guess it's a nice quality of life. Like, you won't say no to it. -5 tech costs is, I mean, even sadder. It's basically 2,500 monarch points throughout the campaign. Especially getting tech 333, you're probably not, so you're getting half a mana a month from it, but it's like there. It's just kind of a sad one, to be honest. At least it's available for everyone. I think it's very much fitting within the -5% idea cost category, though. So go sit in there, City of Kami. You're not awful, but I won't exactly recommend beelining it or anything. Anyway, after that we get the City of Sana. A lot of cities today. Now, when you get to level 3, you create a level 1 center of trade, so you can get a level 3 like center of trade on it as well. Great. You can also get a merchant out of it and a cost promote mercantilism. Now, if you are not using the mercantilism exploit to get mercantilism for free everywhere, then congratulations, I guess. You know, you're not doing the exploit. If you want to really stack cost promote mercantilism, it's kind of a weird one to stack, but can be kind of fun, that I will concede. And, hey, it's just there to grab. The merchant certainly isn't bad, but compared to other, I would like to call it a workhorse monument. My issue is it's kind of like a pretty weak workhorse. And if you are also like Yemen, you can get 25% manpower true faith provinces at level 3 with this monument, but it's kind of a Yemen buff, if anything. It's not, you don't really care about it, and -10% depth tech cost is just great. I mean, it's kind of like Yemen can, as part of their mission tree, also spend a whole bunch of money to get 20% manpower true faith provinces, which is good, but also whatever. Anyway. It's a workhorse monument, it's just a weak workhorse, so yeah. City of Kami, where have you gone as well? All these city ones are kind of very great at hiding. I remember seeing it earlier, it's like, what is that doing over there? It's kind of like a reddish gate. Unfortunately, reddish gate also applies to a bunch of these. It's this one, isn't it? Yeah, there it is. Okay, beautiful. It's a workhorse monument. It's just a very weak workhorse monument. So it's... I can't knock a merchant down into D tier because it's not entirely useless, but it's not exactly up there by much. After that, we get the City of Sari. You need to be a horde, basically. That's the requirement for it. Sikrada also works for it. You get yearly horde unity and envoy travel time. I quite like envoy travel time. It's just pretty easy to get to 100% if you care about it. If you just play a Spain campaign, did a video on that a while ago. If you've seen it, fair enough. If not, eh. But either way, it's not... Envoy travel time is just a bit of a quality of life thing. Especially during a world conquest, envoy travel time does save you quite a bit of diplomat movement, but whatever. Regional modifiers of friendly movement speed and local recruitment time is honestly whatever. I feel like it's just there to pad out a modifier list. The big thing is yearly horde unity. Thing is with hordes, you're either conquering the world and then calling the campaign quits, in which case you're not struggling with yearly horde unity, or you are struggling with yearly horde unity, in which case you're not like you're not expanding fast enough. Just go expand faster, you'll be fine. I know it's not very helpful advice, but it's kind of the reality of it. I feel like if you as a horde are able to afford a 7,500 ducat monument, you probably also know how to expand fast enough to avoid running into yearly horde unity issues. So it's a bit of a weird one in that ranking, but it is what it is. Again, suffers from the same problem as the City of Sana, is that it's a workhorse, but it's kind of a very weak workhorse. But hey, it's envoy travel time, so it can be cool. And the other nice thing with this is that this monument is movable, so if you are playing as Britain, you can nick this one and put it in the Great Museum, in the British Museum. So that's always good to know. Doesn't mean you can use it, because unless you become a British horde, it's not exactly useful, but it is what it is, so yeah, enjoy it. Otherwise, it's back into the weak workhorse. Go into C tier and be happy. With that, we move on to Cologne Cathedral. Woo, that's this one. Now, Cologne Cathedral is you need to be Christian, is the long and short of it, and gives you Christian buffs, either yearly papal influence, or monthly fever, or church cost, stuff like that. But the big thing is cost and enforcement religions through war. If you are playing around with that mechanic, it's nice. Otherwise, it's some yearly papal influence and monthly fever. It's kind of a buff to Christians, is that they can eventually get this and get either more papal influence or monthly fever for if they're going reformed, or that kind of thing. But on its own, it's kind of a eh. It again fits the normal categorization of workhorse monuments. So go sit in B tier and go enjoy your placement in there. It's not weak by any chance. It gives you your flat forward buffs that you need, but it's nothing too special. Anyway, after that we get the Divrigi Hospital and Mosque. For something that's called a mosque, it again has no requirements. Global modifier wise, reinforcement speed is beautiful and I love it. 33% inventoriness gain is whatever, because by the time you're building it, you probably have a decent chunk of inventoriness, but it's not bad to grab, especially if you haven't completed the inventoriness, haven't got it to 100%. And piety accelerator is always nice for Muslims if you are specifically focused on the thing. So it is what it is. Now, it also does mean that you are less likely to get the plague event, but it's whatever, to be honest. I think it's a cool flavor thing. Beyond that, who cares? The big thing is, of course, multiplayer 25% reinforcement speed is really, really good. It means you recover 125 instead of 100, men. Or if you're in enemy territory, instead of recovering 50, you recover 75. No, so instead of recovering 50, you recover 62.5, so around 62. So it's still nice, and if you're stacking reinforcement speed, it's beautiful, and yeah, I would definitely go for it. It allows you to recover your troops a lot faster, and it's just nice to have. It's very workhorse, though, in that multiplayer context. In single player, though, it's a bit whatever. I mean, it's definitely not a bad thing to have in single player, because it means you can recover from your skill issue fights a bit faster against AI, but it's not only gonna... It's a quality of life thing, it's not gonna make your campaign better. For me, though, it's kind of a bottom of B tier, because it's just a nice quality of life thing, but it's not exactly, winning the campaign for you. I think it's the best way of summarizing it. Anyway, that's the mosque. Now we move on to the Doge's Palace, not to be confused with with that random Bitcoin thing that people are going on about and making loads of money from and then losing all their life savings. This gives you reform progress growth. That's good for basically turning into GovCap. It gives you a Republic edition. It's good if you're a Republic. You can also grab it if you're not a Republic, and at that point you're basically getting it for the eventual government, reform progress growth buff, which is nice. If you're also playing as Venice, you can get some monthly authority power on it for your councils, keeping those guys in check. Otherwise, it's whatever. It's quite good with Republics, and it's obviously quite good for the GovCap. Otherwise, mediocrity at its finest is a good way of summarizing this one. It's a nice one if you're stacking modifiers, and I stack modifiers a lot, so I have to respect it, but it's not... You shouldn't really be beelining it, I guess is the best way of summarizing it. So much like a lot of other monuments, enjoy your decent mediocrity in B. With that, we move on to the Dujian Guyen. It's this one here. This is the Chinese Xinan province in Chengdu, basically canal-like system. Globally decreases your monthly devastation. It's actually quite nice go for global monthly devastation, especially if you're playing as China for keeping your mandate up, and it's nice for recovering from wars a bit faster and getting your prosperity going a bit. It's that I like. And when you upgrade it, the local area gets dev cost modifier, an extra possible building at 40% province governing cost. That I actually quite enjoy because it means that you can basically dev that area a lot more and build it up quite a bit. Unfortunately, in single player, that's kind of pointless LARP, and in multiplayer, it's like, okay, you get an extra state as China to dev. You already have a lot of really good states to dev. It's very nice if you're stacking local dev cost modifier, don't get me wrong. Beyond that, it's a weird one. Kind of have a soft spot for it, but that's because of a personal preference. So for personal preference, I think it kind of scrapes into B tier. But if we're being a bit more objective, it's high C tier as well in some regards. Like this, I wouldn't disagree with this placement if I were me, but I like province. I like state governing cost. It's not global, but like the local state governing cost. I like the local dev cost modifier instead of dev cost. Dev cost modifier is different to dev cost for the record, and a lot of people don't get that. That's because Paradox communicated it really badly, but it is different to trust. And the global modifier is nice, so it's a bit of a soft spot for me to put into B tier, but yeah, it's not ideal. After that, though, we get to the Duomo di Milano. Another Christian workhorse monument, a bit very similar to Colonial Cathedral. You can also get a bunch of attacks locally on Milan. If you play in Milan, you can get the All Roads Lead to Milan mission, which buffs Milan, and you can buff it even more with Duomo di Milano. So it's kind of nice, like, squeeze out more things from one province. Otherwise, it's another monthly fever point, it's another yearly papal influence. It's some more church power, and it makes your clergy lower again. If you're Christian, it's nice to have for your big blobby Christian campaigns. Otherwise, it just kind of sits there. Looks quite nice in person, that I would say. Otherwise, yeah, that's that. So much like Colonial Cathedral, it's another workhorse monument. There's a lot of these, as you can probably tell. After that, though, we get to the Dutch folders. Now, this is one of the reasons you actually do want to accept the Dutch, as well as the previous one. 10% goods produced globally is very, very nice. And as the Netherlands, you can actually get that up to 15% goods produced, as well as more provincial trade power in the area. It's beautiful, it's good, it's great, would recommend, go for it, right? The folders are good. I think the economic buff from them also makes it kind of worthwhile grabbing, and it's just... I have seen people snake this monument, is all I will say, and it's worth accepting the Dutch for it, for better or for worse. So into A tier you go, and sit there and be happy about it. Next we get Edinburgh Castle, that's a fun one. So, you get local defender dice roll bonus. In Scotland. How many times are you fighting in Scotland when you have enough money to afford 7,500 ducats to upgrade the thing to level 3? My guess is not much. So the area modifiers of +1 local defender dice spawn is neat. Unfortunately, it's also on a farmland, when Scotland famously has a lot of farmland. Oh wait, no, it's covered in mountains for even more defensible terrain. So it's basically making a local farmless province a bit more defensible, despite the fact that the entire thing is, well, surrounded by more defensible terrain, and you never get invaded there, right? As England, if they've already pushed you all the way up to Scotland, they've probably taken the south of your country already. It's a bit too late to start, winning from +1 local defenders. And if you are going to roach them in the north of your country, you're probably going to roach them in the actual Highland provinces, instead of on Edinburgh Castle. So you never build it for that. Clearly what you actually build it for is the military-free policy, and that's nice. The military-free policy is neat. There's not too much to talk about there in that regard, right? That's just good. So, yeah, the military-free policy is kind of what keeps this thing entirely relevant, because it's kind of a customizable military buff that you can pick up for yourself. I think people really underestimate the military-free policy. It saves you a point a month if you're trying to really squeeze out more things. And in single player as well, it definitely isn't bad, because you can grab some nice policies for yourself. Unfortunately, that's kind of all you're getting, so get into B tier around near the Mine Temple and be happy you're there. After that, we get the El Escorial. Do need to be Iberian or basically unaccepted. 10% gov cap is great. Global tariffs is nice if you're specifically Spain and you have the Iberian culture group. Treasure fleet income is good. It's an excellent example of a workhorse monument, and the 10 gov cap is also just really, really nice if you are very specifically like playing around treasure fleets and global tariffs. Sorry, if you're doing a world conquest, the gov cap is really nice. The global tariffs and the treasure fleets are great for your colonies. It's very nice, and if you also form Rome, it can be Rome as well. So basically nothing to complain about there for the El Escorial. It's just a very nice monument, so yeah. It again fits into the category of workhorses. Within specific builds, like as Spain, I could probably bump it up to an A, but overall, yeah, it's probably quite high tier B for me, to be honest. Especially from the Gulf Capital World Conquest kind of run. Anyway, we now move on to the Elora Caves. Same thing as a lot of the other previous aforementioned monuments. looking at you, the Buddha statues, you need to get a Citadel, Machana, Mariana. The issue is that the global modifiers from it are just incredibly sad. +1 tolerance for true heretics, of true faith, +1 tolerance of heretics, +1 tolerance of heathens. This is -1 unrest. This monument at level 3 gives you -1 unrest, right? Technically not the same because it also helps you with your religious unity, and it makes the Brahmins a bit more loyal, but the fact I can easily compare this monument to -1 unrest tells you how pathetic it really is. So, for me, and for that kind of reason, I'm actually quite disappointed in the Eu4 Caves, because they are quite beautiful and stunning in real life, and they honestly kind of need a buff and a tweak, in my opinion. At least give you +1 max tolerance to heretics and heathens or something similar, so it's at least conceptually useful. But yeah, go sit in D tier and be happy. You're on place, to be honest. Next, we get the Erden Zoo. Same one as the Eu4 Caves. You need to be Thirdabra, Vajrayana, Mariana, or Hindu with Buddhist and all the other things. I'm not going to repeat myself. Makes the province a bit cheaper to dev in Karakoram. I mean, it's not exactly a farmland, but it is what it is. It's nice for hordes because it gets yearly horde unity, and it has 30% religious unity, which works really well with the other 50% religious unity monument, meaning as a horde if you grab this, and the other thing to level 3, you can get 80% religious unity just to forget about worrying about religion things. The Karma Decay is also technically there, but it's whatever. Like, the problem is that this one actually has requirements, unlike the 50% religious unity one, so for me, that kind of holds it back quite a bit. And it's like a very horde-based monument, because if you're not a horde, this gives you 30% religious unity. If you are a very specific culture group, it's a bit too conditional for me, so it goes to the top of C tier, but that's about what it's getting. Next, we get the Ichmazen Cathedral. You need to be Coptic. Now, if you're Coptic, you should definitely get it, because you probably want the transfer true faith and missionary strength. Otherwise, Coptic is a relatively underplayed religion, in my opinion, so yeah, it's not the most popular thing on the planet. So for that reason, I'm going to be quite harsh towards it. Into C tier you go. Top of C tier, don't get me wrong, because again, Coptics use it quite well. It's just quite hard to get, and it's not like 10 discipline, unlike the Zoroastrian thing. So I don't think it quite justifies B tier. Again, I'm being quite harsh in this tier list, but we both have a lot of monuments, and again, a lot of them don't exactly have negative debuffs, so we have to be quite objective in the fact in our relative rankings, relative to each other. With that said, we move on to the Falun Copper Mine. +9 local goods produced is really, really good. Especially with no global modifiers, with no requirements. You can also save a lot on your artillery. -20% artillery cost is extra good, especially since artillery is the expensive part of your army. So yeah, just no complaints there. It's a very nice monument. And you can even get some local construction costs and time on the area, but honestly, who really cares? It's a very, very nice workhorse monument, one I would definitely recommend. Go sit in A tier and go be happy about it. It's a great one to grab. With that, though, we move on to the Puerto del Moro. Hope I did that at least reasonably well. Naval Force modifier is nice, and that's kind of all you're getting from it. The other thing that's convenient with it is it also gives you Overlord Naval Force limit, so you don't need to like own it. You can have it as your vassal and just have it. So hey, more Naval Force limit never hurts. Gives you more ships. You can get Naval Hegemon faster if you're going for that. Otherwise, it's kind of a meh modifier. It's not a bad thing inherently. If you're going for Naval Force limit, it's nice, but it's not really worth beelining. So for me, go sit in C tier and be happy. With that, though, we move on to the Golestan Palace. Relatively new one. I believe that was King of Kings. You need to be Persian and accept it. When you do grab it, +2 monthly spender is nice. +2 dip rep is really, really nice. Monthly Persian influence is, if you're Persia, it's neat. Otherwise, whatever. The dip rep, though, is very convenient, especially for annexing your vassals even in single player. Monthly spender is nice to get your spender bonuses faster. It's just an excellent workhorse monument for me. Doesn't quite break into the A tier, but it should definitely be sitting quite deserved into within the B tier and quite high up there. Right, there we go. Okay, so after Golestan Palace, we get the Gomateshvara statue. So for all the British museum enjoyers, you can also nick this one, so that's always good to know. You do need to be the Mughals to get the Syncretic Architecture mission, or you need to be in the Dharmic religion groups. This is another one of those ones. Unlike the Eu4 Caves, this one does actually come with max tolerance of heretics and heathens, as well as a transfer to true faith. And it does come with +2 dip rep, so it's incredibly a lot more useful than the Eu4 Caves. So definitely no complaints on that regard. Otherwise, it's a weird one. Let me just fix it, because I moved my... Where is my little place thing? Yeah. There we go. Okay, sorry about that. Just make sure. Okay, fine. There we go. Sorry. Didn't mean to scroll there, but yeah. Back to where we were at the monuments. The Gomatesha statue. Has -2 on local unrest, whatever, but yeah, I just quite like it quite a bit more because of the dip rep and the tolerance of true haste, as well as the heretics and heathens, as well as the max tolerance increase. So if you're actually going for a humanist build, this is a pretty nice requirement to grab for it. Definitely would recommend, is what I was saying in that regard. So regarding the big nice statue, the requirements for it are quite strict, but unlike the other ones, it's quite a nice one to get. So this is what the Elora Cave should be. I think just barely scraping into B tier, in my opinion, but it's a workhorse that's doing its best. I think it's a nice way of describing it, and it's certainly very nice for very specific builds. With that, though, we move on to the Great Living Akola Temples. The same requirements as the previous one. You have to be Dharmic, etc., etc. Plus significant strength and culture conversion cost. Weak workhorse and has stricter requirements, so I'm not too much of a fan of it, to be honest, but it is what it is. It's a weird one to rank, that's for certain. But the thing is, like, its missionary strength is good, but it again has the requirements to be in a Dharma group and all those things, so it's a bit of a awkward one for actually stacking missionary strength. Anyway, I do have to give it a ranking, and I think for me, with all that said and done, it's going to be in C tier because the buff is quite nice, but it's just the requirement makes it weaker. So then you go in there and be happy about it. With that, though, we move on to the Great Mosque of Bijen. You have to be Muslim as well for this one. So I think there's more Muslim campaigns than Dharmic campaigns. However, it also, unlike having 2% missionary strength, comes with 3% missionary strength versus heathens. You tend to have more heathens than heretics, especially if you don't know one faith. So I prefer missionary strength versus heathens than against heretics. And it also comes with an extra flat missionary, as well as some monthly Pite Accelerator. It's an excellent workhorse. Unlike the previous ones that I called workhorses, this is a very good workhorse, so one I would certainly recommend. For the Great Mosque of Bijen, where the hell are you? There you are. So yeah, into B tier and go in there and be happy. You're an excellent workhorse. Keep doing what you do. After that, we get the Genkobuk Palace. That's the one in Korea. 20% advisor cost is really nice, as well as +2 monthly, +2 monarch admin skill. The issue is you need to be Korean and actually be Confucian as well, so it's very strict on its requirements, and the requirements really hold this thing back from being amazing. You can technically also grab it if you are, well, enable the Korean Palace flag sets from the Mongol missions. So it's like you have to kind of work to actually get the palace, but if you do work for it, it's a nice one. So it's a bit of a weird one. I just think it's way too difficult to actually grab it. So into C tier you go. After that, we get Hagia Sophia. Now, this is a weird one. Basically, most Muslims get it if you're Sunni, Shia, or Ibadi. You also get it if you're Orthodox, Catholic, or Coptic. So if you're Catholic and Orthodox, you can get it, but if you're like Reformed or anything, no, it can't do for you. Comes with a tolerance for true faith, which is nice. Comes with some Yeti Patriarch Authority, which is only good if you're Orthodox, obviously. And some Yeti Papal influence if you're Catholic. Otherwise, the main thing is the tolerance of heretics and the tolerance for true faith. It's not bad, but it's not like amazing either. Honestly, Hagia Sophia should probably get a buff, given how relevant it was realistically and how sad it is in the game. But because I have to rank it, not based on how much of a Roma boo I am, and based on how objectively good it is, go sit in C tier and think about how much potential you've wasted. After that, though, we get to the Hampi. It's another one of those classic Sirodava, Vijayana, Mahayana, or be a Buddha Hindu, or be a fetishist with Badu Homakat, or be Shinto, or be Tengri and Synchronizer. So again, a bit of a raw penny in the arse to get. But 25% religious unity, 15% all the state loyalty equilibrium is actually quite nice for keeping all of them in check. And some monthly devastation is okay, but like the best way to get monthly devastation is just not get invaded in that area. So that can be achieved better with a military buff, but it is what it is. In terms of its actual buff, the religious unity is nice. It's just quite a bit of work to get to it and the requirements for it. So it's quite a sad one in that regard. But hey, the religious unity, I think, makes it still viable in C tier. It's just a bit too strict in its requirements for building around it, and there's just better, easier ways to getting religious unity. If you really need religious unity, just grab that monument for 50% North Split. After that, we get the Hanzhou Grand Canal. Woo! Globally, you make your Unix 5% more loyal. If you don't have Unix, that's useless. Otherwise, you get local dev cost, non-dev cost modifier, and some goods produced on the province. It's an expansive manufacturer, right? It's a glorified fancy manufacturing. I mean, you can build it as an extra manufacturing, but if you're if you have the money to build it, you probably don't need to build it. As China, you can also get it for some unit quality equilibrium, but honestly, who actually cares? After that, we get the Harao Jagol, one of our newer monuments. This is in the Heel of Africa. The nice thing with this one is you get yearly institution growth +6. Unfortunately, that's quite pathetic. It does mean that if a new institution spawns, and you have this thing already at level 3, like, yeah, the area will get the institution, but it will take it a while to, well, actually grab it. Namely, it'll take 17 years. The thing is, this is the part where actually stacking local institution spread helps quite a bit. Because if you stack 100% local institution spread, just from just this monument alone, will now give you 12 a year, and that's a lot more doable, especially if you're happy to dev it a bit to help it along, because that's now done in 8 years and a bit. Well, 8 and a third years, so yeah. Definitely a nice one to grab in that regard for getting institutions, and I think it's quite unique and quite cool. Otherwise, you get prestige from development for missionary. If you're in a situation where you're converting so much the prestige from development missionary adds up, you're probably in a situation where you've owned enough monuments to get 100% prestige constantly. Otherwise, it is what it is. And 25% stab cost modifier, though, I do quite like, because I tend to be very overextended and have to end up stabbing quite a bit. So I actually quite enjoy stab cost modifier, but that's just me as a personal thing, which is why I quite like religious as well, for that extra stab cost modifier within religious ideas as well. You do need to be Muslim, so it's quite a bit of a knockdown for it, but yeah, it's a decent workhorse. It's not quite a sick workhorse like some of the other ones, but it's getting there. I've used workhorse quite a lot here today, but I think it's a strong C tier monument. I think is a decent way of summarizing it. You have to do quite a bit of work to make it useful, but at least it's not entirely bad, even after all of that effort. After that, we get the Haramandir Sahib. Need to be the Dharma group. If you bother getting it, though, it's really nice. Minus City Autonomy territories is really strong, especially for builds around it. So even though it's quite a bit strict on its requirements to grab it, yeah, I think the Haramandir Sahib is a pretty decent A tier, because of how good it is when you do actually grab it. That's about that, though. After that, we move on to the Hedel Stave Church. Need to be in the Christian group, which is ironic, but it is what it is. It does give an extra missionary maintenance cost as well as some staff cost. It's a nice buff to Christians. It's much like Colonial Cathedral, a very workhorse Christian, though. It's a bit of a nicer one than the Clone ones, though, and I will rank it relatively high. Probably below the 10% discipline monument, simply because, yes, it's a lot more acquirable, but an extra missionary is very, very nice and should not be understated. After that, we move on to the Himeji Castle. Everyone can grab it for some yearly prestige spy over construction, foreign spy detection. You don't care about foreign spy detection. If an AI is going to spy on you, or a player is going to spy on you, they're going to spy on you anyway. Even if you catch the spy, you're only delaying the inevitable, right? You're not going to save yourself from a player decking on you because you catch their spy all the time, so they can't fabricate a claim. A player will find a way to deck on you. Spy detection isn't that big of a deal. Spy over construction as well is also just a quality of life thing, doesn't really matter, and it's another one of those classic buff the local province. I'm sorry, you look really pretty, but just go to the top of B tier and be happy. No, not as good as Brandenburg 8 even, but... Then we get the Historical Center of Prague. Need to be Christian. If you're going for an HRE, Revoke 0.15 Imperial Authority is amazing. Otherwise, 0.5 Monthly Fever and some 0.5 months of True Faith and +1 getting Papal Influences, whatever. It's very, very nice if you go for the HRE Revoke. Otherwise, it's very underwhelming. Seeing the best way of summarizing the Historical Center of Prague. Which is a shame because, again, it's quite pretty. Now, where the hell have you gone, Mr. Historical Center of Prague? That's not you. Is that you? That is you. Is that the dome? The problem is, there's a bunch of these things have domes, so you're like, oh, which one is it with the domes? It's this one with the dome. I probably mislabeled one of these monuments already. My apologies for that inevitability. But there we go. Right, its potential keeps into C tier, but I just can't. Once you've done an HRE revoke, it's whatever. And an HRE revoke is definitely very doable, even quite early without it. And it's kind of a small buff to specific Christians once you have bothered, so there we go. Anyway, with that said, we move on to the Holy City of Jerusalem. A bunch of people can use this. Jewish people can use this, Muslims can use this, Christians can use it. Basically any Abrahamic religion loves the Holy City of Jerusalem. This thing is amazing. And yeah, it's good. An extra missionary, some yearly prestige missioning strength versus heretics is also nice for keeping your own people in check. A monthly fever is great for fever builds. Papal influence is there, and you can even get 3% local missioning strength on the area to convert everything to your religion. It's great, it's nice, it's a neat one. An extra missionary and missionary strength, I mean, against this heretics is sad, but it is good. I mean, it's top of B tier for me. technically debating entry into A tier because it's so broad with that extra mission it provides for so many people, but I think I want to reserve A tier for the truly amazing ones. And with that, we move on to the holy city of Kairouan. You need to be Muslim for it. Gives you chance to true faith, gives you piety excited, gives you institutions spread true faith provinces. Whatever. You can also get overextension impact modifier from a mission from it, but it's kind of... Overextension impact modifier sounds really good in theory, but when you're like 4,000% overextended, well, not 4,000 more, when you're like 200% regularly overextended, minus 10% isn't doing much. And the other issue with overextension impact modifier is it doesn't scale with the way you'd think it is for the events, because if you get like 101% overextension, you're getting all the negative overextension events, right? However, the overextension impact modifier just decreases the unrest. It doesn't actually decrease the likelihood of those events, or it doesn't prevent them. So you're still going to get those negative debuff events from being 100% overextended. And that's a big part of what makes overextension difficult. So it doesn't really help with that. So, and it's a conditional thing for completing a mission, so it's whatever. It's a chance of true faith. It's a weak workhorse yet again, so go sit in C tier and be happy. It's a decent chunk of there. Uptimes of true faith is nice for most of the builds, and the piety rate is probably the main reason going over there. Anyway, Imam Hussein and Alabis Holy Shrines. To be specifically Shia. Gives you military strength versus heretics. It's way too specific for me, but if you are going for Shia, it's nice. So because of how specific, I think it's top of C tier, but I'm not going to be having it any higher than that. And we're going to move on to the Imperial City of Hugh now. Vajrayana, Theravada, and Mahayana yet again need to be Tengu, Confucian, a classic, or Shinto, Buddha. You've heard this list 15 times over. I'm not going to repeat myself. You can probably tell in front of me still. Minotaur territories. I like it. Doesn't stack with the other Minotaur territories, like Monument, which is annoying because you can't be both. You can't be Dharmic as well as Theravada, Vajrayana with Mahayana, whatever. Unless you go specifically Hindu and get Buddha. But that's like a very specific build, which again I've done a video on for stacking minimum monthly autonomy territories. God, I'm advertising my own channel so much in this video where you like reference to other things. But anyway, that's a separate debate entirely. With that said, yeah, it's minimum autonomy territories, right? It's good if you can use it, and it's very strong when you can use it. This one just is a bit more annoying to get requirements wise. Although I have to say respect that I can get it with Hindu. So if you go for like a Dharmic build, it's nice. Like, you can get both minus 25 Minotaur territories, and that's at that point you're now cooking with portals. Especially if you take the what's it called? The economic hegemon. There's minus 45% minimum autonomy territories. So you're knocking that down quite a bit now already. And if you do all those things, then you end up forming Russia as your final thing, because their final age ability is minus 20 minimum autonomy territories, I believe. So you're basically just having an insane amount of infantry protection. So you can kind of like almost use your trade company land as normal land. It's very strong. But it is what it is. Anyway, so for the Imperial City of Hugh, though, it's kind of comparable to me for this one, but it's only minus 10, even if it is a bit more acquirable. So I'm going to put it near to the top of B tier. It's just really held back by specificness of its, of its requirements. I find that, yeah, you're not... Because Hindu with Buddha deity sounds like you can just play the Hindu and take that deity, but no, you have to play a specific country, I believe, Mayavana, that has Majapahit, that has access to a mission that enables that deity. You can't do it as any Hindu tag. Anyway, with that said, we move on to the Imperial City of Kyoto. That's a fun one. You need to be Japanese, and the thing is with that is that when you upgrade it, you get +1 admin point or on your ruler, which means there is some fun, shall we say, exploits and fun in games between giving the Imperial City of Kyoto to a vassal, and then like doing some shenanigans to downgrade it, then grabbing it back, then upgrading it again, just like in a little loop to get 666s if you have infinite money to burn. Kind of exploity, but it is what it is. 10 max abs is nice because it can help you run an extra privilege. Also, low privilege is nice. Minus 10 design subjects is nice as well, and a get legitimacy. It's like a neat little small buffs that never hurt. It's the best way of, I think, summarizing the small unit. So kind of have a soft spot for it because it's a jack of all trades, but it's a decent like jack of all trades. Like it's a nice quality of life one. So unlike your magic cards, I have to respect it a bit more. Although the one thing I can't respect it is, where the hell have you gone? Where is my icon for it? Where is the city now? Here it is, Kyoto. Found it. Yeah, the square cutoff provided by this website is not very helpful, but it is what it is. But yeah, for me, I mean, it goes into the bottom of B tier because the buffs aren't amazing, but it's nice to have because even 10 max abs is that if you are going to bother doing court and country, you can kind of get it anyway. But it's like an extra monument, an extra privilege. You know, it doesn't really hurt. After that, we get to Inkushuk, again to all you English... I'm going to keep making that joke, or to all of you English archaeologist enjoyers. This one you can nick and move to London. And this one's good. No requirements, plus 2 max promoted cultures, minus 20 cost of advisor culture, and 15% promoted culture cost. This one's amazing. You do need to go to northern Canada. It's such a terrible place to be that even modern Canadians don't really want to live there. And that's saying something, given the current Canadian house pricing. If anyone watching this is really far in the future, if something's happened to the Canadian housing market, 2024, the Canadian housing market was significantly worse than everywhere else, for your context. And if you don't know much about the Canadian housing market, it's getting really, really bad over there. They are struggling, even compared to modern standards, to the point of absurdities. But this is a video about EU4, not about Canadian economic policy. And the long short of it is this monument's amazing. It's into an A tier. You make your advisors cheaper, you get loads of extra promoted cultures. It's great, and you can move it to your capital, so you don't need to bother with doing much else. No requirements. It's great. You can nick it from your colonial subjects. A lot of fun. Would recommend it. The other nice, cool thing about this monument, I was like, oh, what does this look like? And well, turns out that this isn't like a one-off thing. The native people that live there would build like a bunch of these. What were these things called again? The Inkushuks. They'll build Inkushuks as if they would get lost, they'd look out for this big pile of rocks and see, it's this Inkushuk, I know where I am now. It's like a little waypoint they'd build. So good to know that, creating a big pile of cobblestone so you don't get lost is a universal human experience. That's just, quite reassuring. And for the record, you may be wondering, what is this actual pile of rocks meant to represent? That's meant to be a person. So if you ever think your art looks bad, you know what? People called that a person. So your art, it's going great. I believe in you. Keep going. With that said, we now move on to the Itchen Kala. That's another relatively new one. This one's added in Central Asia in the Tartary area to Kivra. Has no requirements, which is nice. Gives you 100% placed merchant trade power, so you can get in. That's plus 50 on your inland nodes and plus 5 on your naval ones. So it's not awful, but it's on every single merchant trade power, so it's actually quite nice. Makes the centers of trade a bit cheaper to upgrade. In Lemon Mod, that's amazing because the level 5 centers, level 4 centers are expensive. Outside of Lemon Mod, it can save you a bit of money because you're spending, 7.5 grand to save yourself 200 every time upgrading a center of trade to level 3 and level 2. Not that big of a deal. And it also reduces trade penalty on online trade node. That can be kind of funny if you grab this monument as England, because you also have a mission to reduce it by 70%. So you can basically collect everywhere as a home node. Although at England, if you're conquering Central Asia as England, you're probably doing a world conquest, so you probably don't care about that buff, but it's cool. It's nice. I like the monument, but it's not that strong. So I think the top C tier is the best way of summarizing it. It saves you money on level 3 centers of trade at the cost of loads of money up front, right? Not exactly the best buff. Anyway, Jokan Temple is next. Thirodavra Vajana Mariana Yino the list. It's one of those other relatively annoying ones to get, but 25% reduced unity, mission strength, and mission maintenance cost. Yeah, it's not bad. Definitely can't complain about that. Again, religious unity can be achieved through other goals, but the mission strength is definitely nice, and the mission maintenance does kind of start to add up. Although, if you're spending 7,500 ducats on a monument, you can probably afford an extra 20 ducats, even if you're trying to convert 100 dev provinces or something. How many 100 dev provinces are you convert? The mission maintenance isn't that big of a deal. The main thing though is the missionary strength. It's nice. I like missionary strength. It's just strict requirements and a royal pain in the ass to get to, so go enjoy your top of C tier and be happy about it. With that said though, we move on to the Kaaba. You can either get, as Byzantium, set the flag that you can use Kaaba, or you're Muslim and then you can set the, or you're Muslim, in which case you can basically use it anyway. Gives you war score cost as other religions. That's really nice. Gives you religious unity, which is, again, but doesn't hurt, but it's there. The main thing is war score cost as other religions for Muslims. That makes it really good, and that means I quite like it. Unfortunately, it's not going to, carry a run on its own, so it's just the top of B tier monument for me. Not much more here to say with that. With that though, we move on to the Kanbazide Palace. No requirements, minus 20 advisor cost, plus 2 depredations, and a dip rep. It's good, right? It's just good. Great for messing around with your vassals, integrating them faster, and making your advisors cheaper. It's just a very nice, palace to have. So without a doubt, into A tier you go. Much like the one selected here. It's just a very nice monument. Is it bad that I knew the image of it because I said as much at the E4? Probably, but E4 is a good game. With that said, we move on to the Kasha Vishwanath Temple. Does require you to not be the Mughals, which is very sad, but if you're in the Dharma group, minus 10 CCR, minus 10 AE impact, Brahmin's loyalty. I like CCR, AE impact is definitely nice. It's a good monument. Into A tier you go as well. Be happy. With that though, we move on to the Kazan Kremlin. No requirements. However, garrison army damage does mean that if anyone assaults you, they're going to be quite sad. And it does decrease Great Project upgrade time, which is kind of whatever, because I feel like if you really want to save Great Project upgrade time, you just spend money on Great than Project faster. Monthly autonomy changes, whatever, but the garrison army damage is really, really nice. In multiplayer, it's quite nice because it also pretty much prevents you assaulting. But in single player, the eye doesn't really assault, so it's kind of whatever. It's a weird one. I think there's large disparity within the rankings for it. So because I think in multiplayer it's almost an A tier because of its ability to prevent people assaulting, but in single player it's barely scraping into C. I think I'm going to be making it barely scraping to B tier overall, but that's kind of the ranking I'm going to have to give it. With that though, we move on to the Khajuraho. Dharmic, one requirement yet again. It gives you local dev cost minus 20% on the area. Not the greatest thing. Globally gives you a bunch of chance of new air or monthly air effect increases. If you want chance of new air, play as Sunni so you get 100% new airs every time. It's really whatever. I don't care. It's a very expensive university. Is the best way of summarizing it if you're Dharmic. Next we get the Kiev Peshevska Lavra. That's a cool one. It does have to be Orthodox, so it's quite restrictive even by Christian standards. But comes with 2 tons of True Faith and Semitic Patriarch Authority. That is quite nice. And if you get the if you play around as Russia, or I believe it's anyone with that mission tree, you can also get an extra mission and mission maintenance out of it. That's just quite nice. So 2 tons of True Faith is quite neat, especially striking tons of True Faith. The extra mission is also really, really quite nice. It's a very nice workhorse monument. Unfortunately, it's significantly held back by the fact that you have to be Orthodox for it. So yeah, that's quite sad, but it is what it is. Very pretty place. I have to commend it. But there we go. Yeah. It's just quite restrictive, and the modifiers are meh. But again, it's quite nice as specifically Russia or Orthodox kind of builds. So for me, it's kind of like a C tier overall because obviously it's quite restrictive. But if you are playing as an Orthodox tag like Byzantium, it's probably can be knocked up to B tier because of the tolerance to True Face stack. And if you're playing as Russia, you can knock it up to A tier. That's kind of a testament to how strong Russia is, not as a testament to how strong it is. And I've just realized I have grabbed the wrong monument, haven't I? Yes, indeed I have. So let's put you back. Oops. At least I caught that one. Next we get the Kilwa City. You need to be Muslim. +4 merchant trade power flat is on a inland node that goes from 50 to 54. On a coastal goes from 5 to 9. Yeti prestige and ship trade power. Like, it's not awful. It's just meh, and it's still restricted. For me, it's a high C tier. It's like, if you're really worried about getting trade, instead of dumping 7,500 ducats into this monument, dump 7,500 ducats into Mercs and conquer the area you want to conquer, right? And in single player, and in multiplayer, well, kind of the same to be honest, but also, you know, if your best way of competing with trade is this monument, then you are better off just kind of signing a deal with the person or fighting over the trade instead of trying to make it that way, because it's just going to annoy the person more than anything. With that though, we move on to the Krakow Hall. No requirements, comes with 20% local goods produced, 2 merchants and 10 global trade power. Beautiful workhorse monument. Cannot complain at all about the Krakow Hall. It's great. Much like the previous, what's it called? Words are indeed very difficult today to say. But much like the polders, it's just an excellent economic one to have. So go next to the polders and be happy about it. With that, so we move on to Kronberg. No requirements, but 2 naval combat bonus locally off owned coast means that you can fight really well in the Danish Straits when you own it. What an amazing modifier. You can also gain some mercantilism when you upgrade it. Great. I'm spending 7,500 dit points, 7,500 ducats give or take, on 6 mercantilism. I'm good. It also comes with local defense, much like every other single port on the planet, and naval tradition for protecting trade, which can be kind of good, but getting 100 naval tradition in general isn't that hard. So, yeah, it is what it is. I mean, it's not useless, but it's bottom of C tier at best, is the best way of summarizing this one, so yeah, in there it goes. With that said, though, we move on to Mabanza Congo. You need to be Congo group and accepted. and it comes to the Reform Progress, Growth, Substitution, and True Faith, and Legitimacy. Very similar story to the to this one. It's like nice, but the bonuses are meh on a good day, so it's quite a sad one. I don't really care that much about a Yearly Legitimacy, and that's the highlight. 20% Reform Progress Growth. I mean, I've seen better modifiers. You can get 30 from the Venetian Palace, and that one is a bit, doesn't have any requirements on it. And Congo is a weird one to accept, but you don't always get it. Like, you sometimes get it if you are forming Congo, but it's not that amazing, and you tend to drop it as well as cultures. It's C tier, like mid-pack C tier, I think is a good way of summarizing that one. After that, though, Machu Picchu. Minus 15 idea cost is quite nice. You have to be in the Undead culture group and accepted by the owner, so it's very much held back by the requirements for it. But minus 15% idea cost is quite substantial, so I'll be putting it into B tier. And if you are actually playing as Inca, it's one of your big buffs, so as Inca, it's definitely an A tier. It's not sure, but it's just really painful to get to. After that, we have the Maiden and Nakshek Arjahin. I'm definitely going to be banned from some Muslim countries for that pronunciation, but that's okay. The buffs are Monthly Spender, which is neat, and yeah, Legitimacy, which is okay, and Prestige Developer for missions. It's not bad, doesn't need to be Muslim, but it's one of those other weak workhorse ones. It's the best way of summarizing it, as always. Weak workhorse is a good way of summarizing a lot of these monuments, to be honest. So yeah, go be happy. Overall, I think it's fair to say it scrapes into B tier, but just barely, to be honest. It's pretty mediocre buffs, at least it's just not that painful to get, just be Muslim. After that, Marlborough Castle. Now, I did use it for for stacking local defensiveness. Beyond that, Yearly Legitimacy and Devotion isn't great. Some garrison size, if you're really going for garrison size, sure, but it's not amazing. Like, it's nice for the modifier stacking runs, that's for sure, certain, but it's not something that's worth putting your money in early, so yeah. It's no D tier monument, but I'm not putting it any higher than C. That's my verdict. After that, Malta Forts. No requirements on Malta Forts. 50% war score cost versus other religions. War score cost is good, it's hard to get it, and Malta Forts is one of the few ways to get it. That global modifier, 50% war score cost for other religions, makes it amazing and absolutely worth beelining. This monument is very much up there because of that buff alone. Right? Malta Forts carry a lot of this list. Malta Forts are amazing. Right? Absolutely stunning thing. And we have our second entry into S tier. I think is the honest answer from that. It really helps with bobbing, and even in multiplayer, it makes it so that when you win wars against someone with a different religion, you can punish them. Beautiful. Beautiful monument. Not much more to say there. After that, the Mausoleum. Monthly spender and average monarch lifespan. It's okay on Republics. It's okay if you really build around it and the monthly spender doesn't hurt overall, but another C tier. I'm not going to repeat a lot of my points. It's a lot of similar things. Marangaran Fort. No requirements, does get with the only way of increasing special unit force limit. Now, it doesn't mean that you get 10% of your force limit as special units. It does mean, however, that if you have, say if you're allowed 10 Wind Hussars, you get 10% more of those, so you go from 10 to 11. Otherwise, it's kind of The big thing with it, though, for the modifier for special unit force limit, the big thing with it, though, is minus 20 advisor cost. That is huge. That I like. That is nice, and that's the reason that Negran Fort, with everything else there, is going into A tier. So go in there and be happy. With that said, though, we move on to the Massa Verde. Need to be Totemist. Comes with idea and tech cost. You need to be Totemist, need I say more. It's a sad one. It's very sad. It is cool in the Massa Verde, but it's just barely scraping into C because I'd like idea and tech cost. But it's not that great. Anyway, after that, the Maui. Again, for all you British enjoyers out of that one, you can nick it, although you has to be on culture as Polynesian and accepted by the owner. Plus on tolerance for heretics and plus on tolerance for true faith is nice, and 25% religious unity is neat as well. Because it's relatively okay to grab, I think it's nice, but the modifiers are quite sad. I mean, I like it because I like nicking it, but objectively it's quite a sad one because there's other better ways of getting religious unity. Into the tier you go and be happy as you're there. At least there's no religious requirements. After that, we get the Moscow Kremlin. 10% regiment cost. You get this 10% regiment cost. It saves you money on it saves you a decent chunk of money on your armies. Otherwise, it's if you are in MP where you do care about regiment cost to that extent, it's nice. If you're not an MP where you don't care to the regiment cost to that extent, it's quite sad. So yet again, we see a large deviation in the rankings. between single player and multiplayer for me for the Moscow Kremlin. I think it's definitely up there in A/high B tier, like definitely top of B tier in multiplayer. But it's a C tier monument on a good day in single player. So I think you kind of have to again take the compromise path. And honestly, because it's not even that amazing in, like, it's barely scraping into A high B tier for multiplayer, I think I'm going to put it in top of C tier, but like top of C tier. But that's about it. Because in single player, really, you're not using -10 enrichment cost. I'm sorry. After that, we get Mount Fuji. You need to be Shinto or Tengri that accepts Shinto, or specifically Mahayana, or, harmonize with Shinto. Don't bother harmonizing with Shinto for 10% yearly carbon decay and 0.5 yearly prestige. It's not relevant enough for that. And the other thing is, of course, I'm sorry, I don't like the idea that you can upgrade a mountain. That's just stupid. Go sit next to Mount Fuji with your little pink blossom trees. From that, though, we get the Murud Janjira Fort. It's amazing if you're doing a naval modifier. 30% naval force limit is already good as well. 20% naval maintenance, though, is huge. Hits are expensive. That thing adds up quick. And the yearly naval tradition is great. Admiral cost is also convenient. It's just a very nice one for naval builds. It's quite a few times I've actually seen England basically go over to India and buy the province for the monument of India from them. And it's absolutely worth doing that. It's a very nice monument if you are doing naval builds, because it's a lot of naval buffs. Now, it is naval buffs, so it's a bit but because it's so good with naval buffs, and it's going to be probably the highest I'm ever placed a naval buff on anything, it's pretty middle pack of CTF, simply because of how good it is and how useful it is for specifically doing naval things with that fort. So there we go. After that, Nanmadol. No requirements. 5% settler chance of 25 global settlers is really good, especially if you're playing as China. Make sure you colonize this province, because the moment you can colonize it, you can already start using the level 1 version of Nanmadol that's already on the province. It's absolutely nice, and the yearly naval tradition also never hurts with it. So yeah, it's another nice one for your colonizers. Absolutely go and grab it. Unfortunately, for something like the European colonizers, which is why it's going down to B tier, it's a bit very out of the way because it's kind of the Pacific. But once you do grab it, it does help your colonization efforts, and for that I have to commend it. With that, though, we do move on to the Nanjing Grand Canal. It's the other one version of these canals. Same thing as that one. It's just another prettier picture with a slightly different, but not too different set of modifiers. Go in there and be happy. Anyway, next one, Narikala Fortress. Has to be into BC, no requirements. Local defensiveness, local fort maintenance, minus 100% means that you can get a free fort if you spend 7,500 ducats. You can just, pay for the fort, and, you save probably 7,500 ducats overall on it. It's... Why is that relevant? But hey, minus 75% local fort assaultability and 50% local defensiveness means that, basically assaulting you in that region becomes a real pain in the ass, but otherwise it's not that big of a deal. It's kind of a troll one for multiplayer, which makes attacking you there harder and more painful. The other issue is, though, it doesn't really win wars on its own, right? Because if your army is defeated, just the fact that it takes the player longer to siege you out doesn't save you from imminent death, right? So it's not that great overall. And especially in single player, if your army's getting stack wiped 3 times over, and the Ottomans are going to siege you out anyway, right? If you're struggling with it, this is going to make you beat the Ottomans if you're struggling to beat the Ottomans. So for me, it's kind of a weird one in that regard. I have to say, though, thematically it's cool, and unlike all the other fort buffs, at least it's for a local region. But it's just not good, so go to the bottom of C tier, and be happy you're not in D tier, because at least it's thematically cool. After that, we get the Nizwa Fort. No requirements, and it does come with max absolutism and a max privilege per estate. I actually quite like the max privilege per estate and the max absolutism. It kind of works as well quite nicely with itself. It does give you 3 max attrition on the area, as well as +3 attrition. Be careful, though, because that +3 attrition applies to you as well, which is, I think, kind of funny. Your troops will just look at this fort and attrition harder, even though the fort's not shooting at it, which I think is hilarious, but there we go. And when you upgrade, you get 3 free dev clicks, so congratulations, but yeah, it is what it is. I quite like the max tabs, I quite like the max privilege per estate. I think it's quite useful in single player and multiplayer in that regard as well. Because in multiplayer, the max privilege per estate is quite useful for squeezing more out of your estates. And in single player, exactly the same thing, and the max absolutism helps you maintain 100 absolutism with it. So I like the 4. I quite like this one, and I think it's a very nice workhorse up there in B tier for me. Now we move on to the Notre Dame Cathedral. A classic Christian monument, very, very similar basically to the Cologne Cathedral and those other ones similar to that in that fashion. So it'll be going with the statues in Cologne Cathedral in that list of buffs, which are again 22 papal influence and some church power or monthly fever if you're going for it. It also does come with promised governing cost. However, if you're playing as France, it's already on your capital. So, sorry, not. I'm looking at Palace of the Popes. So Notre Dame does come with the classic monthly fever, yearly papal influence, Teutons of True Faith. The other thing that is quite nice with it, is worth mentioning, is 10 religious unity. That's not big of a deal, but it's nice to have. It definitely doesn't hurt at level 3. Anyway, Palace of the Popes. You need to either do a French mission, or be in the Christian group, or, basically that's about that. Comes with a bunch of province governing cost, comes with yearly paper influence, comes with some monthly fever, and clergy max privileges. Again, it's a weaker version of Notre Dame, but not that much weaker. Although the modifiers are a bit sad if you're, like, basically Reformed, if you're not Christian. If you are Christian, though, it's quite good. If you are a specific Catholic, sorry, it's quite good for the Palace of the Popes. So I think it's going to scrape its way into D tier, but not much more beyond that, I'm afraid. Anyway, with that though, we move on to the Parthenon. You have to accept the Greek, Athenians, or Romans, or be in the pagan group. However, 20% advisor cost and a possible advisor in an area that definitely needs it is very beautiful, and I like it. So Parthenon, because I like my advisor cost, you go into A tier. Now some of you may wonder, I don't like advisor costs and ideas, and the reason I say for that is because you can get it from monuments. And these are the monuments that make it good. Like, advisor cost is really strong, but that's because you can get it from the monuments. You don't need to, like, drop an idea group for it. And so, obviously, any monument that does give you advisor cost gets ranked quite highly for that reason alone. With that said, though, we move on from the Parthenon to Petra. Envoy travel time is nice. You need to accept those culture groups like Syrian Bedouin, but it is what it is. And the dip relations, dip rep is also quite good. It's a great quality of life one. I like Petra. I personally quite enjoy it more than I should. But for me, it's an excellent workhorse civ as well. Workhorse, great project as well. So yeah, D tier, sit there, make your vassals happier, make your subjects happier, make everyone happier. Definitely cannot complain about that one. God, we are running out of screen space. I just got to show how many monuments there are. But we now move on to the Porcelain Tower of Nanjing. Need to be in a Chinese group and be accepted. Institutions for institution embracement cost. And some, like, you build it for the yearly meritocracy, but otherwise it's kind of sad. It's not entirely useless, but it's barely C tier. I think it's the best way of summarizing it. And we move on to the Pramban temples. Dharmic requirements yet again. Comes with dev cost, comes with global dev cost, which is really, really nice, unlike the local dev cost from all of those things. I have to respect that. And the missionary strength is also quite a nice buffer overall. The main thing holding it back from S tier, from the missionary strength and dev cost globally, is of course that you do need to be in the Dharma group. But Pramban Temple is one of the reasons that the Dharma group is quite nice as well, because you have access to it. So bottom of A tier for me, with that global dev cost and that missionary. Next we get the Pura Basaik. Again, apologies for the pronunciation. Same requirements in the Dharma group. Makes your Brahmins loyal, makes your Brahmins a bit more loyal. Stab cost is okay, monthly work exhaustion is, I guess it's there, -1 unrest, again helps. This one's quite a bit sadder, that I have to admit, so yeah, it's Pramban Temple, Pura Basaik, yeah, sorry, you're quite a bit sadder. I mean, it's a high C tier, but it's just combined of being quite painful to get and not great modifiers. Anyway, with that said, though, we do move on to the pyramids. The pyramids of Cheops, to be honest, to be very specific. More yearly government power, so if you're Egypt, it's nice. Otherwise, prestige chaos, heroic equilibrium is there, and no stability loss on monarch death. I guess it's neat, but it's not that big of a deal. You do need to accept a culture for it, so if you want to grab it, it's okay, but it's not that big of a deal. You do kind of get a 2-for-1 by accepting a Levantine group of getting the pyramids and Petra, or getting the pyramids and I forgot what the other one is. I think, oh no, you don't need that for the monument, so yeah, it's kind of there, but it's not that big of a deal overall for me. It's ever since they took the idea cost, it's kind of lost a lot of its like appeal as well, so it's a pretty bottom C tier for me. Like, it's not awful, and especially if you're doing something like Cairo, an S3 yearly government power isn't bad, but it's -1 prestige decay, and +5 state law equilibrium, you're going to be fine without it. Next is the Kapanan. It's another Incan one, so it's a royal pain in the ass to get to. And what do you get for all that extra effort? Reinforced speed and yearly authority. Now, the reinforced speed and trade efficiency is nice, so it's kind of a good one for, like, actually getting there. It's just a real pain to get to there. Honestly, it's kind of like a buff to the Inca, if anything, once you have the money to afford it. And especially if you have completed the mission for it, it also comes with a bunch of envoy travel time reduction and some state maintenance, which is neat. So it's a B tier, but as Inca, it's an A tier. It's a good way of summarizing it again. It's just a royal pain in the ass to actually go for it, because you need to accept a culture group and not from a colonial nation. Next, we have Rajasthan Square. Need to be Muslim. Cost of enforced religious reward is whatever, but I quite like the stab cost of monthly party accelerator, so it's a very workhorse one. Go into like high C tier. Yeah, go into high C tier and be happier there. That's a decent summary of it, to be honest. Like it's a nice quality of life thing, but you're not getting any further compliments from me out of that. Next, though, we get the Ryla Monasteries. Again, it's an Orthodox specific. 25% religious unity isn't awful, but again, it's I haven't been too nice towards that, and the 30% stab cost is neat. It's nice if you're Orthodox, right? If you're already doing a Byzantium or you're playing as something like Russia, it's quite good for any Orthodox build. Otherwise, it just kind of sits there as a pretty rock, and I don't think you don't exactly flip Orthodox just for this monument is the best way of summarizing it. So I think overall, again, we have to be relatively harsh because of how good a bunch of the other monuments are, but yeah, C tier is its placement. Next we get the rock-hewn churches of Valale Bella. You have to be Coptic for this one. It's nice, 2% missionary strength, but again, it's just the royal pain in the ass to get. It's, yeah. Bottom B tier. We've discussed +2 missionary strength, like, projects before, basically. So, yeah. It's a high C tier kind of thing. Probably around here, but it's not going to be much more than that because Coptic isn't that popular. Next, you have the Royal Palace of Caserta. 15% reform progress growth means you can press the GovCap button more. 100% GovCap means you don't need to press that button more because you've got more GovCap. I like it. It's a nice one to grab, no requirements. It's a very, very neat one. I do even sometimes beeline for it because it pretty much pays for both the province itself as well as just giving you GovCap. It's nice. No complaints there at all, and the yellow prestige just makes it easier to maintain 100 prestige as well, as before mentioned. Personally, for me, it's a very like decently up there B-tier monument. Not much more to say there. After that, we get St. Basil's Cathedral. That was kind of added relatively recently. You need to be Christian for this one. Gives you 2 chances of true faith and cost of new advisory duration, which is quite neat, as well as all states military equilibrium. And if you have, basically, you can get an extra bunch of icon bonuses. So if you get the events for the icons, you can get some extra bonuses from it if you have St. Basil's Cathedral, so it makes Orthodoxy a bit neater as well. But it's already quite good. Cost advice with ruler culture is very good. I like that. 2 chances of true faith is nice, and the all state equilibrium just rounds it off very nice buffs all around. It's definitely one of the nicer churches for that reason. So where are you, St. Basil's Cathedral? Oh god, where have you gone? Is that you? That's you, of course it is. Yeah, into A tier you go. Probably near the bottom of it, but there we go. Right, that's St. Basil's Cathedral. Now let's talk about St. Peter's Basilica. Well, you have to own Rome for it. It's quite nice though. 10% idea cost, again, it's neat, but at least you are able to get it relatively early. It's on -5. Curia power cost, again, it's better for getting stuff out of the Pope. It's good for getting stuff out of the Pope. So it's nice as Italy, because it's one of the few ways of getting Rome without the debuff, or if you're Catholic Rome. Otherwise, it's eh. It's also good if you are the Pope itself, but it's very bad otherwise. So it's a bit of a weird one. But into C tier you go for me. Because again, if you're Catholic and I'm actually able to use it, you can probably bump it up to A tier, but that's very specific requirements. So kind of a mid C tier for me because of just how useless it is for everyone else. And even other Catholics, right? Because if you take over Rome yourself just to use the monument, you can't move it out of Rome. And you're going to get the -10 papal influence, so the for occupation of Rome. So the Curia power cost is going to be pretty useless for you in that regard. Anyway, next we get the Salvador de Bahia. It's another colonizing one, comes with global settlers and some global trade power. Honestly, worth colonizing just the province to get the global trade power. That 20% is quite neat. But normally you want to get the Brazil colonial nation as well going. And hey, it buffs Brazil nicely. It's a decent one, and no requirements makes it quite nicer to get. Honestly, pretty underrated in my opinion. But I'm not going to be putting it that much higher than a high C tier for me. There's just other better monuments. Next we get the San Antonio missions. You need to be Catholic in the New World. Missionary strength versus New World. It's like good if you get it. It's just kind of annoying to get it, right? So it's a bit of a weird one because normally it goes away into your colonial nations. But it is what it is. Anyway, for me, into B tier you go and be happy with that. Right. Then we get the Sankin Kutai Palaces. Just have to accept it to be in Japanese. I actually quite like the Japanese culture group. I actually quite like that one. General cost is a nice one to stack for you to be able to get a lot more generals so you can slack it for manpower. And 100% war taxes cost means you can just run war taxes all the time for -15% land maintenance. That's quite neat. So yeah, I actually quite like the San Kotai Palaces and would recommend it. I think it's surprisingly underrated in my opinion. It's one of those buffs for Japan that's not talked about, and honestly I think should be more. It's a pretty high B tier for me. And in multiplayer, it definitely makes it within the A tier. Even in single player, it's just nice to be able to just shove war taxes on forever and not have to think about it. Definitely would recommend going for it yourself. Next, we get the Samco Madrash. It's nice because it's a Madrash that has no requirements and comes with minus 10% tech cost as well. Yeah, it's neat. There's a whole bunch of institutions spread from it, and the clergy is happier when you own it. Definitely can't complain. It's in Timbuktu though, so it's a bit of a trip for most other tags going for it. But yeah, hey, it's neat. I like it, and there's definitely a lot worse monuments. It's the best way of summarizing it. The question is though, where is it on this list? Because I'm trying to see it and I cannot find it. God, these little pictures. I mean, if I made them any bigger, I'd run out of space. But damn. Did I place it somewhere earlier? Oh no, here's the question. Did I already put it in there by mistake as another monument? Don't think I have, but where is it? It's on that one, it's on that one. Oh no. Oh no. This is what I was worried about. It's not this one, is it? No. Could be, it's the God, it's the like it's got like a little scaly pattern on it, on its side. Did that just not import that one? Could have been a classic lemon moment. No, I imported 138 of them, so I should have imported it. But where is it gone? Am I blind? Looks like I'm blind. Where did I put it? I'm a paragon of organization. I would refuse to take any other insults, claiming that I'm not. Oh wait, is it this? Am I being stupid? Doesn't look like it. Well, you know what? I'm gonna make a note on 106, and if it's not, if I haven't found 106 by the end, we'll come back to it and see where it's gone. And if we have, we'll get back to that one. In terms of its placement, though, yeah, it's in B tier, so it's probably where it is hiding from me, to be honest, already. Anyway, next, Santa Maria de Fiona. 20% advisor cost. Need to be Christian. Beautiful monument. Plus the monthly spender. It's great. I like this one. Into A tier you go. Be happy. Right. With that one, though, we move on to the Schönbrunn Palace. That's quite a new one. It's been added to Vienna. And it gives you a chance to inherit personal unions, which is cool. Gives you an extra diplomat and minus 5 years of personal integration level 3, as well as some splendor. I actually think it's quite cool. It's quite unique in its buffs as well, and I think yes, integrate personal union could be something cool to like consider stacking as well. Though I prefer chance to inherit personal unions personally, but you know that's just me. I think it's quite cool, and it's definitely seen there's definitely quite a few weaker monuments for it, and the splendor as well definitely helps. So yeah, it's a solid B tier monument for me, no question about it. After that, though, we move on to the Schwenk Dagon Pagoda. Thirodara, Vajana, Mariana, one of those classic ones. I'm not going to repeat myself 50 times over. The buffs are quite sad. 10 Karma, Decay, and Closure, Local Equilibrium. It's just really why. I honestly, there's reason to not even bother upgrading it, even if you have access to it, because it doesn't even give you a prestige or anything. If your Clergy is already like loyal and your Karma's fine, you don't care about it. Right, 10% local dev cost isn't exactly worth 7,500 ducats. I'll put it this way. Anyway, next one is the Spinal Minaret of Samar. Do you need to be Muslim? 3% missionary strength is nice. I like the Spinal Minaret. I like the Spinal Minaret. It's a good monument. Definitely worth grabbing. Did I at least have this one? Yeah, here it is. Yeah, it's quite definitely a top tier B one because again, it's a Muslim specific, but 3% missionary strength flat is quite good. You should not underestimate how good that actually is. That's up to me. Next, we have Stonehenge. You can be pagan and grab it, or you can just be, well, either Roman or English. And it does come with lots of heretics, heathens, a whole bunch of stat cost, and a little bit of missionary strength. Definitely does not hurt. If you also do a Sunset Invasion, you can get some chance of true faith and cost advice with the religion on it. Otherwise, it's meh. In terms of its like flat buffs, but I quite like the stat cost. I like the missionary strength, and it's not too hard to get it when you go out of your way for it. So, absolutely worth grabbing. Like if you have access to it. And it's a very like neat workhorse one. So for me, it's pretty middle to lower B tier though. It's nothing too spectacular, but it's definitely a nice one to have. That's for certain. With that, so after Stonehenge, we move to the Sultan Ahmed Mosque. Need to be Muslim. It's a classic one. More chance of true faith. It's just quite sad for what it actually gives, and I think it's a bit of a price. And honestly, I think needs a buff for what it was. go into C tier and think about how weak you are, and be happy you're not in D. Next, we get the Sun Temple and Konark. Now, you need to either get the Mughal Syncretic Architecture or be in the Dharma group. You get Prestige Decay and Religious Unity. It's something, but it's like it's quite hard to justify C tier honestly for it. It's quite relatively strict requirements and not that great buffs. Anyway, with that said, then we move on to the Suzhou Suzhou. We move on to the Suzuki Grand Canal. It's a 7,500 ducat manufacturer. It's okay if you're playing as China, so you want to mitigate the flood events and those things, but really, why? Where even is the other canal? Because there's 3 of these, but where is the other canal? Well, I mean, this is the image, but it does mean I've put a different canal. I put the wrong canal in. Oh. The Nanjing Canal and the Suzhou Canal have the same picture. Just goes to show how uniquely and modified they are, but yeah, it's the same picture. It's the same canal. Even Paradox didn't bother to make a different picture for the canal. Anyway, Svayamabhutans. I am definitely getting banned from India with this one. Theravada, Viryana, Shinto, Tengri, you know the drill. I'm not going to repeat it. I've said you know the drill too many times at this point. It's quite a sad one though. Missionary Strength versus Heretics is worse than that Missionary Strength. Yet you come when you make a Clergy and Brahmins a bit more loyal. Like, your Clergy and Brahmins is going to be incredibly loyal, but like at this point they are just loyal, right? You've got them to 100 loyalty, an extra 50% does literally nothing. Missionary Strength versus Heretics, you can run out of Heretics to convert, right? So it's quite a sad one in that regard. It's not bad, but I'm not going to put it any higher than C. Is that even the right one? It is. Next, though, we have the Taj Mahal. Need to be Muslim. Kind of have a soft spot for it. If you are Mughals, you get another -5 change national focus cooldown years from it. Otherwise, monthly splender's nice. You can get some projection from insults, but whatever. I just mainly like it for the monthly splendor and the piety accelerator. Like, it's a decent one, but I can't honestly, compared to how good I love the other monuments are, place it higher than high C tier. So yeah, in there you go. With that said, though, we move on to the Temple of Confucian. Need to be Confucian, obviously, or harmonized. 50% religious unity is good, though, so it's quite nice in that regard, right? But it's like, in a world conquest situation, there are other ways of getting that religious unity without having to bother to go Confucian or harmonized Confucian. So it's a bit of a weird one in that regard. But I have to respect the 50% religious unity from it, you know, respect the grind in that regard. So into low B tier you go, because when you do grab it, it's quite strong. It's a bit annoying to grab it unless you have it by default. Next, though, we have Tenochtitlan. Need to be Central American, but it's actually quite nice. I quite like it because of the yearly reproduction for when you go for it, and it does make the local provinces on, because bear in mind it's all gold. A lot cheaper to dev, and you get a lot more goods produced gold out of that from it as well. If you also play the Aztec missions, you can get extra tolerance to true faith and missionary strength from it. So it's a neat one. It's just really painful to get to for everyone that's not Aztecs or, well, Mexico basically. So yeah, I mean, reasonably high, but not too high C tier for it, I'm afraid, because of those restrictions. Again, it's not exactly a bad monument. C tier makes it sound harsh, but we're putting it into context of all the other monuments. With that, then we move on to the Forbidden City. If you need Celestial Empire government reform, which is very specific, but once you do have it, you get your mandate grow a bit faster and -2 prestige decay. You don't need prestige decay from it, right? You can get prestige decay from other places. Yeti Absolutism is also whatever. It's just like, it's okay as Ming, but as Ming, if you have the money to upgrade it, you should spend the money on other things. So for me, it's going into high D tier, but that's about it. With that said, though, we now move on to the Golden City. Again, one of our new monuments. This thing's really strong. Why did it have -1 interest per annum? As well as monthly gold inflation modifier reduction and gold depletion chance decretion. It's actually quite nice. And it also, of course, upgrades Haunt with 3-base production when you build it, which is, again, a very expensive way of upgrading Haunt. But Gold Rush events now give you extra money, which is also good. Interest per annum as well is very nice for getting loads and loads of into debt, so it's just very, very nice. I like this monument, but honestly, the -1 interest per annum should be nerfed. But yeah, go into A tier and be happy. With that said, we move on to the Grand Palace of Bangkok. No requirements, 15 gov cap capacity modifier, I like it. 50% master force contribution is also really good, especially for colonial empires, as well as the A reduction, the Yeti absolutism. I actually really like the Grand Palace of Bangkok, especially for world conquests. It's like, in single player it's an S tier, in MP it's kind of an A tier, and it's going to be a bit of a weird one, but I personally really like this monument, so I'm going to be quite biased here. I can definitely see it go to A tier, but the 15 gov cap, when you have no requirements, is just really strong and basically just worth, worth going for every single time, because it's not even flat gov cap, it's percentage gov cap. So for me, I think it just barely makes it into S tier, but it's, yeah, I can definitely see multiplayer being knocked down a peg. Even in multiplayer, though, it lets you state more land with less requirements. With that said, though, we now move on to the Great Wall of China. 2 attrition for enemies and some garrison size, but you need to be accepting the Chinese people and have the other, requirements for it. It's meh. Like, your wars aren't won through attrition, and it helps, but you're not going to win a war because you attrition someone a bit too hard. So, yeah, go into B tier and be happy. Low B tier and be happy, but that's not great because it's neat in multiplayer, and I quite like it in single player for just, letting the AI attrition on you, but it's not, that amazing, right? It is what it is. Next, though, we have the White House. Bit of a pain to get, but it's actually worth going for, in my opinion, to actually get for it. The buffs from it are very, very nice. 20% reform progress growth is incredibly good for, pressing the gov cap button, but if that was it from it, I wouldn't recommend it, of course. The thing that makes it amazing is re-election costs, so republics can re-elect a lot cheaper and have it, so that's incredible and absolutely worth it. And of course, the 25% state governing cost is incredible because it allows you to state the world a lot cheaper and better. The White House is really, really strong, and I think it's only been held back by the fact that you need to be a former colonial nation to grab it. So yeah, go into high A tier, and if you didn't have those strict requirements, you'd probably be an S. With the White House covered, though, we now go to Tikal. You need to be Mayan. 30% stab cost and -2 unrest. I don't think it's worth becoming Mayan for Tikal. I'll be completely real with you. It definitely needs a buff. Go to D tier and think about your actions. Next, we get Tiwanaku. Need to be into religion. It gives you divine authority and some monthly divine authority. It gives you some mission strength and religious unity. It's whatever. Especially with that pretty strict religious requirements. I'm not a fan of the monument. I think the required requirements makes it way too weak in my opinion, and hence another entry for D tier. With that, though, we move on to the Tomb of Shah Rukh. Needs to be in Shah Rukh Al Alam, not Shah Rukh to be clear. You need to be Muslim, but 2 tones of true faith and 20 opinion of heretics is absolutely nice, and also inviting a scholar non good cost admin points is neat, which is definitely good as well. It's nice, but it's not that amazing. Is the best way of summarizing it. So yeah. Go into high C tier, probably quite high C tier because of plus tones of true faith, to be honest. But yeah, that's about all I'm going to give you. It's not missionary strength as well, but it's nice for stacking tones of true faith. That's for certain. Next, though, we have Tortuga Island. If you play around with privateers, it's amazing because privateer efficiency and chance to capture enemy ships 30% is great. If you're not bothering with it, it's entirely useless. So very conditional monument, and it's already placed in D tier conveniently for me, so that means I missed the monument earlier. Oops. I thought that was the canal. Well, yeah, the canals all look the same, my apologies. So yeah, Tortuga Island is already in D tier. It's in the right place. If, however, you're playing as a pirate, it's an A tier, right? Outside of that, though, be in C tier and happy. Next, we get the Tower of London. You either need to be Norman, British, or Roman, or do a French mission. Gives you some Yeti army you do a French mission to get some max absolutes or max revolutionary zeal. Otherwise, Yeti army tradition and Yeti prestige is neat. I quite like it for the Yeti army tradition. It's just it's nice to have when you have a lot of money, and as England you have a lot of money, but otherwise it's kind of whatever. So for me, it's another one of those high C tiers for the Yeti army tradition. Honestly, I probably will consider a B tier for it, but I don't think it's single player sadness holds it back quite a bit. And damn, we are really running out of screen real space at this point, aren't we? But there's just way too many monuments. Next, you have the Trakai Castle, though. No requirements. 20% reform progress growth is nice. I like the prestige from it, especially for no requirements. 2 possible advisors are neat, as well as the plus 1.5 monthly spender. It's good when you have the money. Don't like beeline it for it though. It's not that big of a deal for it. I won't like recommend you go out of your way for it. But it's a neat monument to have, and the no requirements are a big deal for it. I think high C tier is well deserved for it. With that said though, we now move on to the Tizinzuntazan. You need to be Nahuatl for it, so you need to do a lot of those like very specific things. Like you need to be Nahuatl and have the Central American culture group accepted. But it does come with culture conversion time, which is quite nice, and honestly, not many things give that out. And it comes with dip rep and some blood game modifiers. So that's your like reform progress thing. The big thing though is ignoring core and distance. So it's like an A tier for a sunset invasion. But if you're invading backwards, it's like you have to do a lot of effort for something that's quite sad. So I think overall, because it's so useless otherwise, it's a C tier monument, and that's about it. After that though, we get the Alminister. Imperial Authority from C tier is a weird one. It's not gonna, like, by the time you... It doesn't help you revoke the HRE that much faster, especially since is a free city, so you kind of want to let it have, like, let it exist, because you kind of struggle by getting enough free cities. So by the time you actually revoke the HRE and have it, it's a bit too late. But you just need to accept the culture, so even if you're like playing as a Muslim, you can get the plus on tolerance of the True Faith out of it, which is quite neat. But the buff is quite sad as well, and it's only one of those things that you kind of build when you have infinite money. So it's pretty decent C tier, like, honestly, but it's a C tier nonetheless. With that though, we move on to the Venetian Arsenal. This thing's actually quite good. It's another one of those weird naval buffs, but the naval buffs it provides is very strong. It allows you Galleass ships, and Galleass ships have 20% ship galley compatibility, and they're Galleasses. It gives you 25% of your force limit as Galleasses, and it also decreases the shipbuilding time and increases ship repair and gives you a bunch of local ship cost. Basically, really, really good for Navy stuff. In fact, so good that, like, because it's also universal to everyone and can kind of give you a lot of naval buffs without needing to invest in naval ideas or anything else. So you just grab the Venetian Arsenal and just use that to get a bunch of your ships out. I'm actually going to put it into the bottom of A tier because it allows you to not think about Navy, grab the Venetian Arsenal, and just have a really strong Navy without having to invest any effort into Navy. With that said, though, we move on to Versailles. It's 20 tax and some improved relations. It's by the time you can afford 7,500 ducats, you can probably afford to fight your coalition, right? Otherwise, it's neat as France if you also do the means of expansion and is the Holy Roman Emperor for that mission, because you can get some extra reinforced speed out of it and a land leader fire. Otherwise, it's like a decent C tier again, but it's just not great overall. I'm sorry. It's a good C tier. I won't knock it down too much of a peg, to be fair, but it's like, it really isn't great. Anyway, after that though, we get the Visby city in, Gotland. If you're a pirate nation, it's NA high B tier. If you are anyone else, you really don't care about it. Privateer efficiency, I mean, domestic trade powers a beam as well, so it's whatever. Go into C tier and be happy, and also D. Honestly no, just go to D tier and be happier on the list. It's A at the tops, B if you're a pirate. With that though, we move on to the Wars of Benin. You need to be pagan for this one. Which makes it incredibly difficult because pagans suck at it. And the buffs are absolutely not worth it. 100 pursuit from that battle, who cares? Province trade power, who cares? 15 nobility loyalty, who cares? Yeah, go into D tier as well. I'm sorry, it's Wars of Benin aren't great. Next though, we have the Winter Palace as well, another flat yearly institution growth. That was a recent buff to it, as well as some reform progress growth and some yearly absolutism. I actually quite like the Winter Palace in that regard for it. Which means I think it's a fair entry into B tier, but that's about all it's going to get out of it. It's not that amazing, but it can help you get your institutions for free, and it gives you some reform progress for Gulf Cap. It's just a nice strong workforce one, that's the best way of saying it. Next though, we have the Dakatian Mayan city. Now, if you're not producing gold in the province, it changes it to gold, which is quite nice. It also gives you a decent interest per annum reduction as well for loans. Now, I did already place another one into A tier for -1 interest per annum. This has no requirements. This allows you to stack that even further, and comes to local goods produced. Absolutely beautiful one. Definitely cannot complain about it. As well as on the province, and gives you the area local goods produced. It's really quite nice. It also spawns production on it when you build it. It's yeah, I mean, it's just neat. To be honest, especially with how I've been ranking this, I'm going to make a quick retroactive aspect. I'm going to take Sierra de Potosi, and I'm actually going to bump it up to A tier because it's quite strong for the gold buffs it provides. And the reason I'm doing that is because I'm also going to be putting Zach in hindsight now, Zach the Mind City up in A tier as well. I think I was a bit too harsh towards it earlier, so I'm going to do a retrospective correction now, so all you gold mine enjoyers can now rest easy. With that said, though, we move on to the Zankin Grand Canal. Excellent. It goes into the other canal. So, what have we missed? Ah! There it is, the 106 monument. That 106. That's the Stankoro Madrash. There it is. Actually, that's the image for it. This one here. Can't remember what I think I put it into C tier, and let me just reread it again. Yeah, tech cost, it's high C tier. That's take it or leave it. Next, what do we have there? Is that the Walls of Benin? No, that's not the Walls of Benin. That's the one that's close to it. I may have missed that one. I'm trying to remember what the hell it's called though. It's the Walled City, I believe. That was loud. Must be City of something, not City of Kami. What the hell is it? Was it ever removed? It could have been also removed as well. Can't remember, because this is Brand Castle, I think. For one of them. Yeah, that one is Brand Castle. Which I believe I already ranked quite badly, so there's one of them that I skipped. But yeah, the Brand Castle is barely C tier. No, this is Brand Castle, so what is this? What are these three? Are those the... Is that the image for the canals? Actually, I've just realised. Yeah, so this one here, that's the canals. Which we're not ranking, and I'm gonna, ignore. Let me scroll down so you can actually see. Then we have this. I think that's one of the... Around the Dahomey area. Geographically, if that makes any sense. I completely forgot the buffs from it, to be... I can be honest. I'm just trying to find what the monument's called again so I can rank it and move on with my life. Oh, God. What is it called? I definitely skipped it earlier, obviously, because it's made the list. I don't think it got removed. I don't think it's a removed one. I don't think they removed Benin, removed the Benin Tower, but they've also removed it from the game files as well. Because this is where I nicked the images from for this tier list, to be clear. It's like a walled city of something, I think. Oh, God, where is it? That too. It absolutely rings a bell. I remember building the thing because I had too much money and nothing to spend it on. Which is a good summary of a lot of these raid projects, to be honest. Too much money and nothing to spend it on, but where is the thing? Genuinely cannot find it. Can't even remember the name of the thing. I'm gonna go look at my game files. What is it called? Right. Of course, trying to find the exact image in the game files again isn't exactly that big deal because this has literally every single monument out there. See, I made fun of the cobblestone pillar earlier, but at least that one you can kind of tell at a glance which one that is. Where the hell is the thing that called? Am I just blind? Can I not find it again? It's a very big circular set of cities, for lack of a better word, but yeah, there's way too many monuments, to be honest. That's definitely good. Where is it? I swear I've just looked through my entire list of great projects and I couldn't find it after literally checking the entire thing. But I've imported it from this file, so clearly it exists because I imported it from this file. I'm genuinely struggling. I've looked through this list. No, it's not here. Let's look through this column very slowly. Is it here? No. Let's look through this column very slowly. Is it here? No. Let's look through this column very slowly. Is it here? No. What about this column very slowly? Is it here? No. What about... I know it's literally in the loading screens, right? That one with the circular things, but I remember it being not that great. which I think is a pretty good summary from a bunch of them again. So, yeah, let's do it by sight. That one wasn't great. Canals since C tier, and this is one of the this is the Hungarian monument on the like the border of the Ottomans, I believe. No, that's the other one. What is the? I literally cannot remember this monument for the sake of my life, which means it's not relevant. So you know what, I'm going to C tier as well. If someone knows what these two are, I think it's Benin or something. I think maybe. I'm gonna control F just. Yeah, it is the walls of Benin. So I'm not being stupid. It is the Benin walls. And those did get removed, but they didn't remove the image. So I am literally being trolled by Paradox now. So thank you. Removed project. Go away. And this one I actually forgot what it is. Oh well. Anyway, let's show the entire tier list. Here it is again. But there we go. That's that. Christ, that took a while. 136 great projects is a bit too many great projects for me. But I guess it is 135. But with that said, I hope you very much enjoyed watching this. So, yeah, as always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.